Hello, hello everyone. Welcome to the Three Body Problem. This is episode 44. Very, very busy episode as we return from RSA with all the festivities there. And then you guys are heading out to PivotCon for the festivities over there. For those watching us on YouTube, Juanito is wearing a brand new t-shirt. Describe this shirt, Juan, and why are you wearing this today?
It's just got strong Houthi energy. No, dude, I got this made and like as a joke, and then I was like, well, I can't wear it after all the shit show we were dealing with the past few weeks, and then now I'm like, well, if I don't wear it today, then there's no point anymore.
And this
Um,
is this is the emojis from the Signalgate group chat, the Hegseth Signalgate group chat with former U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz posting these emojis. And
Strong America energy, bro.
I bring this up because we found out today that it's not really that they're in addition. I don't know. Help me understand there's like an obscure and unofficial version of Signal that is Israeli that they're actually
Si-
using.
Signal,
Reuters
but no
published a
signal.
Reuters published a photograph, and the guys at 404 Media, if you go to 404media.co, actually published this inadvertent revelation of an obscure and unofficial version of Signal designed to archive messages. This is insane. What are we
Well,
talking about here?
I mean, Kosin, you wanna go for it?
No, I wanted to say, do you remember when you guys complained about the fact like why would you use Signal because it loses all the messages, so there's no archival and the
You
government
see?
needs to archive everything, and now they're
You
using that
see?
and everybody's
We
upset
we
again.
were wrong.
This
We,
is the
we,
So
well,
workaround
so
no,
for
no, like you
disappearing.
don't know. Like I think you don't know for sure they weren't using this even before. Maybe they were using this Signal clone even before, and it
I'm
was just
sure they were.
compatible with the with the reporters.
I'm sure they
Uh,
were using it before.
yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think they suddenly switched over. That said,
Mhm.
like it makes this all the more bizarre, right? Like for folks that don't know, like okay, just US centrism, right? Like there's a certain amount of like governmental, like there's a legal requirement, not a lawyer, not the person who should be talking to you about this, but like there's a legal requirement to some extent for like archival reasons that like you're supposed to hold all these communications in a way that like they can be checked and held for posterity or whatever. That's what people were complaining about with the Signal thing, because it's basically like, oh, all these elected officials communicating in a way that will not be able to be seen. It turns out that was not the case. In theory, right? Like what we're understanding with this thing is you have these. It's not just a Signal clone. What we're seeing about this company is apparently they just make these apps. Like it's basically like, oh, your boomer, executive dad wants to like use WhatsApp. Don't worry about it. Like we've got a version ourselves that is going to do archiving and it still works. So like you solved one problem, but created an even more concerning one, because frankly, like this is what you had with Wicker before. It's why Wicker was so popular in some circles. They offered this as a homegrown capability for like their enterprise version, quote unquote, or their government version was essentially like you can have these private chats, but like you're gonna have some logging essentially, and you're gonna be able to check that. These guys did the same shit, but apparently through like an Israeli company that then got bought by an American company, and all of a sudden like everyone's just kind of face palming on the other side, going, okay, so is this now like, even if you say like we trust this Israeli company, or we trust the new owners, or whatever, like there is this bizarreness in that you're continuing to offload things to an infrastructure and a centralized service of some sort that is that much more of like an interesting target, right? Like it's
Right.
just so bizarre, man.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about, we find out this because Reuters snapped a photo of him checking his phone during a cabinet meeting that was live on the air, and the screenshot
The
showed
luck
this.
on it, dude. The verify pin thing, like it was like the sheer luck of that reporter at
Oh
that
my
point is just
goodness!
fucking fascinating, right?
How are you, Costin?
I'm good. I was just thinking, like, is this an issue with the software or is it like an issue with the law? Because if you ask me, the software is not the problem. The law is the problem. And I think that people should be able to talk to each other like sensitive things without it being recorded. Same as like, I don't know, they meet in a hallway or something for a smoke, or to tell jokes, and that conversation maybe shouldn't be recorded, even if they talk important things, or in some kind of gentleman's club in Washington over steak or over a lemonade or whatever you drink in Washington, D.C., which may not be tea or beer. Who knows?
So what
whiskey.
you're saying is when you digitize it, we set a different standard to how this conversation.
You're writing it down, right? Like it would be the same as like let's think of it as like if I wrote Kostin a letter as like you're like, hey,
versus
Kostin,
meeting
like,
him
this
at the
is-
water cooler, right?
Yeah.
If you write it on a tissue and like I show it to you and then I throw it away, it's not the same.
I don't want to parse terms on like what it means to have like these comms and why you would have them. I do think that this isn't like a personal liberties issue. You're acting as like an elected representative, and frankly, in this particular case, it's not even like we're talking about, hey, like what do they talk about? You know, what is the water cooler talk around? Like you're talking about operations and like military operations, literally like
In detail, yeah.
as important as it can get in a timely fashion. It's just strange. But look, more than anything, cousin, it's most strange because we are spending a fuck ton of money and technical talent in producing secure mechanisms by which these people are supposed to be talking.
But
And
it's a pain in the ass to use, right? This is where
Well,
convenience trumps everything else.
I do. That's you beat me to it. That's where I was gonna go. It was like, look, like I'm not saying they're right, but it's like you remember when the Netflix security team came out with that like amazing series of blogs where they were basically like, our approach to security is a complete like enablement strategy. Like nobody in the company needs to know shit about security. They just need to kind of tell us what they need to do, how they want to do some of it. And like we figure out this like default enablement path by which you know, everybody just kind of gets to do what they needed to do securely without them having to stress about it. And I think obviously this is even harder in bureaucracy, even harder with a security standard of literally the highest possible caliber of threat modeling. But it does go to show like you really can't just ignore the sort of user experience
Are you
of it
talking
all.
about this paved road concept, right?
Yeah,
The
but yeah.
Netflix paved road concept. and how they
That one sticks with me. I mean, I think Netflix, that blog has stayed with me for like 3 years or something like that. It was just so impressive to look at it from that perspective because, you know, I sing the praises of like Google's approach to security and some of these other folks, but I think that was the Netflix one was like the friendliest, more consistent version of that, of basically thinking about it in like an internal stakeholder model, internal customer model, and like not being kind of cruel and careless essentially as a security team, and being more about like, okay, people are going to do what they need to do. How do we get them to do it in a way that we're going to be happy with and without slowing them down? And I think,
Right.
you know, more big companies that have resources should you know, try to take on that strategy.
Right. The government trying to do communications is just like any other enterprise trying to do communications. There's no difference really. People will circumvent policy. People will do what it needs to be done. People will forward shit to their Gmail. Like this is just normal standard operating procedure in the enterprise. And you have to imagine this is how government operates as well. Like what makes them special? They're using the same tools. They have the same limitations. This is why we'll continue to see this stuff all the time, right, Kostin?
Well,
I mean, he said Kostin.
My bad. I'm sorry, guys. I've slept two fucking hours. No, Kostin. I've slept 2 hours. I'm gonna keep doing this. So please stop me, man.
No, I was just thinking like it was almost like yesterday when Colin Powell was using Yahoo Drafts to communicate. Do you remember that story?
It wasn't
Colin Powell.
This was Petraeus.
This was General Petraeus and his girlfriend.
Petraeus and like his yeah.
So you never sent the mail.
Drafts,
Let me just back up the folks there. He was just drafting a Gmail message, leave it in draft, never sending it. They both had the password to the account, so they would just leave messages in the draft folder, which was
primo strategy.
Who figured it out?
I think someone hacked his account, probably Gucci for like the Romanian hacker, and blew
Found
it
the
up.
draft
Like,
folder
yeah.
of love
Look,
letters. That was insane.
Ah,
Anyway,
I
go
don't
ahead.
know. I still think that there should be a way for elected official, whatever people working on sensitive things, to communicate securely about sensitive things without
True.
it being recorded. I don't know. That's my
Go to a
opinion.
fucking skiff.
They can go to a
That's it.
skiff,
Go
like,
to a fucking
yeah,
skiff.
but
That's the whole
and then you
point. Yeah.
complain like they spend like three days per week just walking to the skiff, like, or
Yeah.
like since, or like opening the door and locking the door to the skiff.
And
There-
Mr.
there's
America
no-
over here always
I
complains
think-
about too much controls and too much constraints on
Look,
things.
guys,
Like,
like
bottom
there's no
line.
winning here. There's no winning.
There's no winning. Bottom line, but there is actually one thing which I find it very annoying, which is that Apple keeps publishing all this, these updates, iOS 18 4.0, iOS 18 4.1, and there's new emojis every time, like 7 new emojis, 15 new, 180 new emojis. And there isn't, like, they should make just an emoji with the fist, the flag, and the fire, just one emoji. So you don't have to type it, like every time
Well,
I want to type this, I have to like type
I
it
have
like
an auto replacement, and I did this when the story came out, where like if you type
No.
Houthis on my
you,
phone,
it
it just like
automatically
replaces it.
replaces it with
And
that.
I didn't realize
Oh,
that shit was
gosh.
gonna be synced across all my devices. So it's not like I need to talk about the Houthis too often, but every once in a while I'm like, oh,
You
the
know,
Houthis, and
This
boom,
is
it's
how
just like.
hieroglyphs were invented, probably. Like,
I look where we are following in some great trajectory. It's like what was it, Eliade? The notion of like the myth of the
Ooh.
eternal return. All of history
Yeah.
is just this sort of like
Eliade.
cyclical return to the same concepts, right?
Someone
Speaking
studying
of-
Romanian classics.
Speaking of Romanian classics and things going in cycles, tomorrow is your election, Kostian.
Yes.
We are back.
It's
Your
round
election
3.
your election has been a theme on this podcast in the past. We got the cancellation and annulling of the last election, all the interference news around Russia, and all the attribution around social media and disinformation on TikTok. Tomorrow you vote again. What's the mood like? Give the folks a quick update on where things are.
Look, it's been a crazy week. May the 1st is a holiday. I don't know if it's also a holiday in the States. Is it?
It's Labor Day. It's kind
Labor
of, I think
We celebrate by working.
we
By
celebrate
working,
it by
huh?
going to work.
Got
correct.
it. So
You
here
freeloading Europeans.
we celebrate by not working, which means everyone's at home and watching TV, and there's this political debates between the top candidates, like the last bombs dropping, the dirt dropping on the other candidate, backfiring to the other. So it's a big mess if you want. Actually, the voting started already on Friday in countries like New Zealand, because they need time to count the votes from
Overseas balloting,
remote, the remote locations. And historically, it's been these remote locations and outside voters that actually decided the elections. Same as it happened in Moldova, by the way.
Meaning
Maya
it's so
Sandu-
close.
Yeah, it's so close that actually, first in Moldova, Maya Sandu won because of these votes. And back in the days, even in Romania, Traian Băsescu actually won with the votes from outside the country, which actually tipped the results the other way around. So now people are like running to the sections voting. It's the highest voter turnout abroad in the history of Romania, I think. So
Wow.
everyone is like very tense. People are voting. There's
Can we vote?
all sorts. You guys, if you have you need the Romanian ID and the passport to vote, I think. So if you have those, you can. Otherwise, we will vote tomorrow. Like people in Romania vote tomorrow on Sunday. We were joking.
So
First
say
you go
who
to
you're
the
voting
church.
for. You're not allowed to
No,
be
no, you
campaigning.
You go to
on
the
this,
church, then you go to the vote, or the other way around. You go to the vote first, depends.
Then you go
Um,
pray.
Then you go pray. Then we go pray for the
Important
results.
question: Is there the same kind of rumblings about disinformation? Is it the same Russian involvement? Are you guys heading into another crisis, or you feel like things have settled down
Well,
and things are?
Several big things have happened. I'll start. Let's say one. the United States, they sent some special envoys to supervise the elections here, and everyone was like very surprised.
Careful with your wording. Supervise or like look.
Well, election supervisors. It's like a normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's strange. It feels strange. Like, and there were like two guys came here. They were on several TVs. I saw them. One of them is
observers.
a Romanian.
I think is a better word, guys. Not supervision. Supervision suggests
observers. Let's say observers. You're absolutely correct.
I know. It feels like supervision. I
feel
know.
like I'm fact checking. Costin, it feels like supervision to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, like everyone's like, what? 1, 2. Number 2, Romania was supposed to join this visa waiver program.
Yes, you mentioned that on the last episode.
Yeah, it was postponed for unclear reasons, but most people speculated it was because of the annulment of the elections, that, it's no longer a democracy, there's questions, there's issues, and now just to make it clear, because the Prime Minister of Romania said like, it's just a delay, guys, chillax, we're gonna get it fixed. And
but now they announced an actual revocation, right?
They announced like, yeah, it's over, guys. Like, no, there won't be any visa waiver program for Romania because of security reasons. It's over. It's canceled. And people are calling for because of me.
Because of Kostin directly.
Yeah, they're calling for the Prime Minister to step down, like a big fail and things like that. But some people say, wow, this is elections interference, because they are like sending a message that they are unhappy with the current government, and it's a message to the people: be careful who you vote for. If you vote for the candidate of the same government, of the same system, no. If you vote for the same candidate of the government, nothing will happen. Like bye to the visa waiver.
No Disney World for you.
What if you vote for the guy with the make Romania great again? Who knows? Maybe it's coming back.
Interesting. And you were saying on the last episode that this is kind of feeding into an anti-American sentiment that was not in place in previous generations. This newer generation is like this revocation of visa waiver program, all this kind of interference talk, all the TikTok talk is leading to a lot of anti-American sentiment there.
It's a kind of disappointment, I think. People are disappointed and they're getting very emotional. And I guess doing this, just to make it clear, this is canceled, and do it one day before the elections, in my opinion, is not something random. Like, nobody does it like in a random fashion.
The announcement coming the day before the election.
The announcement comes a day before the elections that, like, your current government messed up. So be careful who you vote for. And I think, this is going to backfire because people don't see it like in a very positive way. So I don't know. My feeling is that it wasn't a very wise decision. This is going to backfire. But who knows? Like, we'll see tomorrow. By the way, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs also published a PDF yesterday about doppelganger targeting Romania. It's unfortunate. It's a very raw PDF with just screenshots. Well, like, super strange if you ask me. It's not a report. It's not something with IOCs. It's just like some random screenshots of what they think it's doppelganger targeting Romania. They accuse the Russian Federation.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Romania.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and UNCOM, which is a national association of telecom operators in Romania. So it's very confusing from many points of view, like I said, and unfortunately it's not a report. It's just some screenshots. I've tried to do some pivoting on the websites they mentioned there. I'm not entirely sure it's doppelganger. It feels more similar to something else that was also active in November. So
I imagine you guys are being bombarded with X posts and fake news and all kinds of claims, crazy claims on all sides. It must be crazy.
It feels that this election somehow is more important than people were like it might actually be. I don't know why is it so important, or why people think it is that important, because in the end there's one thing here, which is the president of Romania. It doesn't have that much power. It's not the same as the US. Like in Romania, the president, he essentially just nominates a prime minister who forms a government, but in the end, it's the prime minister, the government, parliament who runs the country. President is more like a kind of a cheerleader who says like, let's do this, like, hey, let's do that, like, and typically
That can be
yeah,
fixed.
that can be
Okay.
fixed. Like there was a presidential debate and in which they asked the candidates, what would you do? And there were some who said actually we would change the constitution to make it the same as US, where the president is God or the
yeah.
Pope or whatever. So
There was a time when it was argued that one of the US's most dangerous exports was this idea of like
freedom.
executive. No, well, that's a different argument. But the idea of the executive branch, the way that we do it, because it's so kind of, it can be so unilateral, and like checks and balances don't actually, as we're learning, don't have actual much teeth. It's kind of like honor system. So there was a good chunk of time when like folks would argue that we were doing more damage by pushing this ready-baked constitutional model that worked for us up to a certain point to other places that just did not know how to like respect that. That seems to be showing here, but we no longer have the State Department that we used to. So it's all new, man. It's all unwritten.
To my Romanian friends, best of luck. I hope things stay safe and
Go to church.
Go to church. Ask for the right bit of guidance. I mentioned at the top that we were returning from RSA. Juanito, you got a chance to attend a pretty cool event at RSA, which is this OpenAI Security Summit. You were with all your AI buddies. You're right there in chill heaven. I imagine your heart was bursting with energy.
I was bursting with AI energy.
Talk to me about the OpenAI summit. We were tipped off to some news coming around this Aardvark. Aardvark is a code name coming out of OpenAI. I'm not just going to set it up that way. Dave Aitel did a keynote there. What can you share?
So Dave, so first and foremost, like I am extremely happy, B, extremely underslept. You didn't ask me, you didn't do the customary, hey, how are you doing? So I didn't get to preface this with like, I flew on Wednesday to get to avoid the shit show that is RSA.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about that shit show in a minute.
God, fuck that. Anyways, but to avoid it, but only to go to this event that Dave Aitel put together at OpenAI. And did a very quick turnaround, right? Like the event finished, Matt Knight's talk finished, and I hauled ass to the airport, flew overnight, recording the podcast, and then in 6 hours, I will hopefully be flying to Spain for, PivotCon and that stuff. So I am very underslept, which means that I tend to speak over Kosin. So I'm trying to mute myself. I'm trying to mute myself so I'm not like this, rampant asshole. But I will say,
you are with your people.
I think this podcast has strong 3-hour energy. I think this could be it. No, so look, the OpenAI event was actually fucking awesome, but it wasn't because it was the AI shills all put together. It was a lot of like security folks and like well-chosen security folks. Like you can tell when somebody kind of picks the invite list. Like that's the strength of like LabsCon and PivotCon, where it's like, yeah, the talks are great, but the cooler part is somebody who knows their shit handpicked who would come. So, I have a ton of shout outs, and I'll save that so that for once I'm prepared for the shout outs. But really notable things, right? Alexei Bulazel from the NSC came and did a Q&A privately, sort of at the very beginning, which was actually really cool.
What do you mean by privately?
Well,
because I have questions.
Well, so I'll say that I will.
Was it off the record? Like Bulazel's session was off the record, or are you just uncomfortable talking about it? Because he was quoted from RSA making some points.
Alexei's a friend, and they didn't make it clear. So I'm like a little bit hesitant. But what I will say is, since he spoke at RSA earlier, I'm happy to like discuss the things that were discussed at RSA anyways, because like there wasn't that much divergence. And frankly, I think that being at a more technical place, like it was really interesting to hear how the discussion around AI was grounded in that understanding that comes from like technical people, right? Like Alexei is somebody who like I met him when he was like reverse engineering Microsoft Defender and talking about it at SummerCon, all these other places. Like he's a deeply technical dude, cool guy. It felt really nice to like whatever you might think about this administration. You agree with them, you don't agree with them, whatever. But for once, I felt like, well, somebody who gets this shit is in the room. So whatever happens from this point forward, it's not going to be because of ignorance, which is what that was a feeling that I would get for the past 2-3 years of like being continually engaged in, like it felt like we had to go every time the government picked up the phone. You had to show up because the real fear was that no one at the table would know what the fuck they were talking about. And at least this time around, you're like, well, I know at least 2 people at the table know what the fuck they're talking about. Whatever their views, you agree, you don't agree, whatever, but they know, like JD Work, Alexei Bulazel, they know what they're talking about. So like that discussion, what I loved was we were talking about LLMs and like, you know, will it favor offense? Will it favor defense? Like their usual shit. But Alexei could take that to a level of discussing, well, like in what way will it favor it? Because you have this notion of weird machine thinking, right? Like the kind of intuition led out of the box thinking that gets you things like you know, special exploits like forced entry, like really special shit. And you're like, we don't see AI doing this shit anytime soon. Like it just no, right? And frankly, we should be happy that that's the case. I think that that's precisely where like humans excel. And that's where you know you get this this 2-punch combo. Bulazel gives us that sort of bit of intro and talks about some of these like offensive cyber ops, which like I feel like we're at risk of me talking way too much.
Well, wait a second. Let me set the stage for what he made headlines at RSA for.
No.
So in this, it was positioned as his first major discussion by a top cybersecurity official in the NSC. And the idea is that he wants to normalize the use of offensive cyber activity as a tool of U.S. national power. He told an audience that the U.S. could respond in kind to cyber attacks from China and other adversaries, and the U.S. could do some punching back. So there's a lot of, I don't know if it was, I mean, the reporter probably just kind of plucked out the more like sensational quotes around, like, okay, we should be free to hack back. But there was a sense from him that there are handcuffs in place. The same thing you've talked about in the past, Juan.
Yeah.
Can you shed some light in, like, expand a little? Did he discuss that? I mean, can we discuss at least that theme of what he talked about with you guys?
I think we could definitely discuss the theme. And to be clear, it's not like he went, you know, like he like exposed some
It's
great
not some top
secrets.
secret talk. Yeah.
Well, you know, he's not telling us stuff that you shouldn't be telling us, but that sentiment being expressed, I think, is very interesting, right? Like I've talked about this a lot on the podcast before, and there was a lot of skepticism, which I think was rightly placed. If you're not close to USG and like how they've been working for the past however many years, the things I was saying sounded like I was being like a dumb oaf and like some kind of ogre, just like, why don't they hack more? And frankly, I understand because anybody looking at it from the outside in would go, well, surely when something is important, surely when things are on the line, people are going to get out of this bureaucratic mindset and they're going to do what they need to do. And I think the problem that you're hearing echoed all over the place is, no, they weren't, right? Like the same way that like even post 9/11, you didn't have these organizations suddenly like collaborating and everybody deciding to play ball. Like you needed an ODNI and like all these structural changes. Like the same has been happening in cyber, but worse. And I think the framing is getting really interesting. Like I wouldn't just go for the hack back part of it. Like I don't think that that's precisely what we're talking about. I think we're more likely, and these are my words, I think we're more likely to see more of like a clearer path to a yes on the part of like the cyber commands and NSAs and so on and CIA of like, hey, go fucking do the thing. Like you think that's the right thing to do? Go fucking do it. You don't need 14 layers of approval. Go hack some shit. But also the potential for outsourcing authorities in more of like a soup to nuts way, where like, if the three of us decide we're going to start a little defense contractor shop in Melbourne, Florida, that we can go run the ops from like, from developing the exploits to having the malware to actually doing the targeting packages to having the effects. So essentially you could say we're going to sell DoD effects. Would you like us to blow up a fucking steel mill in Iran? That's what would you like to see, I don't know, some kind of like economic contraction in this particular country? And don't worry about it, bro. Like, we're gonna come up with the ops plan. We're gonna come up, con op, targeting packages, etc., and we will deliver to you this finished effect. And you're giving us the authority of like what would otherwise be an illegal action. And that's not really how things work right now. The mentality is that this is possible. It's very possible that we're going to go that route. And that's why you see a lot of defense contractors frothing at the mouth, right? Like Raytheon has been buying every offensive shop that has come up in the past couple of years. They've all been getting absorbed by this like mega giant defense contractor, because I think there's this expectation, not just that cyber operations are going to grow, but that something's about to change that would mean that they can do a whole lot more with that.
Costin, we've spoken in the past about adversarial intelligence teams looking at each other and saying, "Hey, you hack me. Hey, man, I hack you. This is kind of what we do. Everyone, this is the norm." What does this kind of proportional punchback look like in that context of cyber espionage? We talked about unshackling people to go back at China for what China's done to us. When cyber espionage is involved, like, do you expect any sort of like tit for tat there, or is this just part of policy-based conversations to kind of shift the narrative around being more firm? When you hear Bulazel talk about this stuff, how does it sound to you from your porch in Europe?
Well, I mean, first of all, one of the questions I was just thinking to myself, I mean, people can say a lot of things, but how likely is it that those will actually turn into reality and the US will start normalizing the use of offensive cyber activity? I mean, as Juan was saying, that's quite a high possibility. So, I mean, if this is what people were preparing for, then, I mean, sure. I think if you look from the other side, so from the other point of view, I mean, we've seen all these Russian cyber criminal gangs, ransomware groups going after the US without any kind of problems, essentially. So I understand why people might think there's some kind of a need of a change in the security posture and how you deal with this kind of difference in the way that things are done. It's for sure it's asymmetric and maybe it needs a bit of balance. So I can say that I understand this, but what worries me is who will be doing all this offensive cyber activity. I mean, if
without
it's
these 14 layers of checkpoints, right?
I mean, yeah, no, well, if it's a government doing the offensive cyber stuff, then okay. But then if you begin to outsource the offensive cyber stuff to companies, like you mentioned, a few of them, then I'm starting to get a bit worried, because it may very well go out of control. So you may lose touch with what's happening, with what is actually the effect. And one thing that is, I think, given in cyber is that the possibility of side effects is much higher than in reality.
Is that actually true in your
think
view,
so.
Kostin? Like,
Yeah,
I've always been sort
I
of
think so.
baffled by that argument. Like
I think so, yeah.
that
And do
idea
you know
that
why?
like, why?
Because you have an incomplete view of the target. When typically when you come and you drop a bomb or a missile, what's going to happen? Like, that is going to explode, destroy a lot of buildings, probably will terminate a lot of soldiers who are in the area, maybe have civilian casualties as well. But it will not, I don't think it will affect another business 1,000 kilometers away, or like a power station 1,000 kilometers. In cyber, I think things are a bit different in the sense that you do one thing here and then you kill the entire country's internet connection, or you do one small operation here and it affects the whole cloud of whatever, Huawei cloud, just to give a random example. So
But
that's
Costin,
the thing that kind of worries me.
you're equating blackouts or a train not running to collateral damage where people actually die. I mean,
True.
it's not a one-to-one.
Yeah, it's not a one-to-one, but is it something that you calculate and you let's say put into your risk model or not? Of course, it's terrible when people die, of course.
But come on, man! Like
yeah, I'm still worried about in the light of what's been happening in Europe lately with Spain, Portugal running out of electricity or like getting without
But we're not
electricity.
talking about the Russians, right? Like we're talking about, or the North Koreans. Like we're talking about the U.S., like the most anal fucking version of cyber ops.
Yes, if the government does it, but when you start bringing outsiders, I don't know.
Yeah. But the government
all bets are
never
off.
does it directly, though, right? I mean, a lot of these offensive cyber. Well, I don't know.
No. I mean, that I think that's the argument, right? Like, in my understanding, and obviously I don't know the breadth of everything NSA, CIA, whatever does, but in my understanding, the way the title authorities worked, you basically needed this person in the room, or needed like at least, right, like the whole like dual hat NSA cyber command, same building mentality, right? You build all this shit, then you go and someone, like if it's this particular type of title authority, which I always forget, it's like 10 whatever, title 10, title 40, whatever, then somebody in a fucking uniform needed to click that button. And there's always been this notion of like, the cyber op, like to Kostin's point, I think we were over bureaucratized to the point of inaction in a truly ridiculous way. Like, and I think that's been driven by this like continuous analogous thinking about how cyber is kind of like a nuclear weapon. And you're like, well, what do we do with nuclear weapons? We spend a fuck ton of money developing them, then we spend a fuck ton of money maintaining them, and we pray to God that we never, ever, 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 ever have to fucking use them. And that's kind of the exact same approach that we took with cyber. And you're like, no, right? And look, going back to Alexei's point, to something Alexei said that I think is actually really important and really prescient, and that previous administrations have honestly failed at, is the realization that not doing something is also potentially escalatory. And
explain that.
There's been this like pussyfooting, milquetoast, squishy, soft fucking mentality to the idea that like, but if we do something, right? You remember when Shane Huntley went to what was it, Offensive Con, in front of a bunch of exploit devs and basically gave them this talk about like, the politics of hand wringing. Like, if you do something, then you'll be responsible for something. And you're like, you're better off not doing anything, right? Like, that wasn't his point.
How is that escalatory though?
Well, but that's my point. There's this idea that if you don't do anything, that escalation will not happen. And that is not necessarily true. And I point you to the Chinese, the North Koreans, and the Iranians right now, who have come out and done outrageous shit. Let's leave the Chinese out of it. North Korea and Iran, in the past 5 years, have done outrageous, unacceptable shit for a nation state. Things that would have been considered an act of war were they not cyber. If they were not cyber, like the North Koreans robbing banks at scale, fucking doing all kinds of insane shit, would have been unacceptable. The Iranians literally hacking, ransoming entire countries, right? Albania getting hit with fake ransomware by Iran If they'd done that by any other means, we would have said this is absolutely unacceptable. And if Albania had decided to like go bomb Iran, if that's something they can do, then we wouldn't have really, we would have said don't do it, but like we would not have thought that was disproportionate. The reason I'm saying and I think Alexei has a really good point. The fact that we didn't do anything has actually motivated this notion that it's perfectly okay for you to do this. If escalation is the idea that you're gonna do something that is gonna motivate the adversary to do more or to do worse, then the way we have treated these massive cyber attacks by doing jack shit.
What is the something though? This is the part that I'm missing. What is the something that happens? Like I can understand, or let me ask this. Do you separate ransomware actors, financially motivated ransomware actors hitting hospitals and doing the kind of the shit that you talk about, like just things that we wouldn't accept normally?
Right.
You separate that from cyber espionage. Like, should the government do something, the same something against those guys as they would to Salt Typhoon? Like, help me understand what you mean by something.
I absolutely separate espionage from any of this, right? Like, espionage is kind of like the like background radiation of cyber, right? Like everyone kind of does it, and saying that it in itself is a bad move is not quite right. However, not being, policy idiots, we also know that like what we consider espionage is also the first step in any other operation you may want to take. So it's kind of hard to tell, right? Like you have these weird like gradation things. Richard Danzig, who was at this conference, like I'm a huge fan. Like I was actually so psyched that he was there. I didn't even know he was going to be there. This is the guy who did the Living on a Diet of Poisoned Fruit. It's like a really famous paper about O-Days. He made the point that, well, if you're placing implants in our water infrastructure, what are you spying on, right? Like it's not an espionage thing. That in itself, the targeting alone, right? Like that was the whole notion with Bolt Typhoon. That is an espionage. But
what does do something? What is do something?
Right. I think the important thing here is also to get away from this concept of cyber as its own domain, because the notion of do something is not you hacked me, so I will hack you. I'm hacking you all the fucking time. You're hacking me all the fucking time. But you did something with your hacking that is considered crossing the line. So I will respond in a way appropriate to the intent of what you did, not the mechanism of how you did it. So if you come and fucking shut down a water plant or do something that we don't like, I am well justified in, I don't know, dropping a fucking JDAM on top of your building, right?
Okay,
like
so like physical, like kinetic activity as a response to this is in play.
Whatever you choose to do that you feel is appropriate for that. Like, look, I'm glad we started to do open attribution to some extent, and I'm glad that we decided that like sanctions and indictments were a good step. Why we decided that was the only thing we could ever do is beyond me. And I think that's where you go, well, there's this notion that like we don't want to escalate. You go, okay, but escalation again is being thought of in this kind of nuclear warfare mentality where you go, well, that will lead to mutually assured destruction. You're like, no, not in cyber. No, what the fuck is no? That's not how this shit works, man. Like, we know that's not how this shit works. If the North Koreans hacked Sony and we fucking, like, I don't know, went and blew them the fuck up, or like we bricked their entire internet infrastructure, which is not as hard to do as in any other country, and they were not able to come online for 6 months. That is a way of disincentivizing bad behavior. And I think that's the real problem we've gotten to. We have seen truly outrageous shit happen on the interwebs and have basically said, that's fine, bro. We're going to hit you economically. We also understand that most of your economy is running through a black market. And we're already telling you it's okay to live outside of the law. So what are you going to do? I don't know. Maybe
Costin,
decide
does
that the juice
does
is
that
worth the
ring true
squeeze?
to you that the Americans are handcuffed and don't do anything at all? I mean,
I don't know. I don't agree with this point of view, and I do actually wonder what happens when you shut down the internet in North Korea. Okay, so they restore it in 2 days later, and they do the same in the States, and they
are
shut
you
down the
able to
internet
are you
for
able
the
to
whole
absorb 2 days? Yes.
Bro, if
state of New York. I don't know,
Coastin,
and people were like, "Oh my god."
if the North Koreans can shut down the internet in the United States, we
hmm
have a way bigger problem, and it's not going to be about us shutting down their internet.
But
The motherfuckers did that to Sony over a fucking James Franco movie. They did that shit to
which
Sony over a
means they can do
stoner
the same.
comedy.
Yeah, so
And
they can do
That's
the
the
same if provoked, right?
that's the mentality that says, well, there's a drunk guy at the bar being an asshole. We need to just let him, just don't look him in the eye, don't interact with him so that he won't get worse. And then he goes and he punches somebody at the bar, and you go, well, but like, let's not do anything so he doesn't do anything worse. The guy goes, oh, well, there's no consequences, turns around, punches another person at the bar. You go, don't do anything so it doesn't get worse. Let's just cut him off. Don't give him any more drinks. That is not an appropriate mentality. And like, look,
I
the
think it's
proof
a
is in the
wrong
pudding.
analogy. The way I see it is like a rowdy in the bar who's making like a lot of noise, and you say like, let's go and beat that guy because he's making a lot of noise. And then you beat the shit out of him, and then he calls a few friends and they beat the shit out of you. And then like everyone's happy because they had some
Wait a
fun at the
second.
bar.
Wait a
But I
second. Let me
agree
flip
when
the
it's just
question.
noise. Yeah. It's
Let me
okay
flip
when
the
it's just
question to-
noise, but what do we accept as something that's actually in effect, right? Like you wiped an entire company and you like took them down. Is that it? You literally bankrupt an entire cryptocurrency exchange, steal a bunch of money for a bunch of people. Is that it? You go to Swift. Is that it? Like what the fuck?
Pull that mic a
what
little
is
closer.
it?
Pull that mic
Really?
a
I'm
little
like
closer.
fucking yelling. I'm like fucking
Why are
screaming
you
over
yelling?
here.
The
like-
microphone is right there. Costin, wait a second. Let me flip the question to you. What should we do? We should just sit back and have them do this preposterous shit over and over and over again. And because if we do something, they will escalate. Like at some point, something has to balance. So, what are you suggesting?
I think you should do the right kind of things that stop this kind of activity from hitting you in the first place. Be it, I don't know, shifting democracy, getting other people elected, hiring their hackers, getting them out of North Korea, giving them better jobs, discouraging them from doing anything by, I don't know, hacking into their phones, stealing photos, I don't know, leaking confidential photos, or like leaking those to their own government, things like that. But I don't think that this random display of destructive power is going to help anyway. It's only going to escalate. So I think that the types of activities need to be very well fine-tuned.
That's why I'm
they
trying
need
to
to
get to this.
discourage these activities in the first place.
I'm not
Juanito, wait a
saying-
second. That's why I'm getting
Yeah.
to the do something. The do something.
Yeah.
What the something is important. What
The
Costin is
something is
saying
important.
you can do a variety of some things
course.
Yeah.
in the background without dropping a warhead in some building in
Okay.
Moscow.
No,
I,
but
I agree with you guys. I'm not saying we need to I'm not saying that the drunk guy at the bar who punches somebody, you just turn around and fucking shoot him. Like, I'm not saying that that's the only appropriate measure. There are many, many measures. And you can choose which one it is. And honestly, maybe shutting down North Korea's internet for 2 days is enough of a pain to be like, hey, remember, we can still do shit to you. Or, hey, how about this? How about just getting a little more unconventional in our warfare, right? These motherfuckers live on laundered money. They have all kinds of shell companies and weird shit. How about instead of sanctioning them, which you know is not going to do fucking anything, you just drain one of their wallets one day? They suddenly, wherever Kim Jong-un is keeping $3 billion worth of bullshit to buy MacBooks for himself while everybody eats cardboard, you just disappear that money. Who's he going to complain to? Who's he going to bitch to? Right? Like there
That's
are
fine.
so
Like,
many,
that's fine with me.
there's so many ways, but we wouldn't do
That stuff has to be happening
anything.
though.
No,
Like, that has to
it's
I
already
think
be
the whole
happening.
No,
point
I
is
don't
that
think
it's
it's
not
happening.
happening. It's not happening. If it
How do
was
you not go
happening,
disappear that money?
if it was happening, the Iranians would look, in North Korea, you can say, Kim Jong-un, Rocket Man has got rockets with nukes. Iran does not have nukes. If it was going to happen to anybody, it would have happened to the Iranians. And I have a feeling that if the fucking Ayatollah suddenly woke up and he was missing $2 billion in foreign whatever, that they would have said something. These people do not stay quiet. So it's not happening.
And just on this escalation argument, we've seen Iran do some things we've seen Israel do things in Iran on the kinetic side that hasn't really seen that kind of blowback. So in fairness, it's like,
dude,
I don't know.
Israel is showing us the reality of it. Israel, sorry, let me pause.
Don't yell. Just pull the microphone closer.
No, I think I am going to yell, so I should put the microphone further. I think let's think about this more realistically. Someone thinks it's absolutely appropriate to shut down all of the gas stations in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Someone thinks it's appropriate to literally melt down a steel mill on video and put it up on Twitter in Iran. They have not only thought it's appropriate, whomever they are, but they're showing us that you can punch these people in the mouth from time to time in a really public way, and they're still not going to escalate. They're not going to retaliate, because the truth of this is that cyber is not equivalent to a nuke. Cyber is, in many ways, in the way that it's being used in this capability, is kind of cheeky sabotage. It's all about this gray zone type operations. They're a little more bellicose than just making a statement on television, but it's not quite like they flew a plane and dropped a bomb. So it's you're living in that gray zone in the middle, the way someone like Lucas Kello would have argued about it. But why that is what lets the Iranians and North Koreans do whatever the flying fuck they want in cyber. And what we're basically saying is, let's make sure we don't want to piss them off. You're like, why? We're far greater military powers. What's been the point of all this buildup? We keep unleashing all this military might in the wrong places because we get bored. You go, oh, what's Vietnam up to, right? But when it does come to people who are just living completely outside of the global order and doing whatever the fuck they want, then we're like, oh no, let's not. You're like, what the fuck, man?
Based on Alexei giving notice at RSA that things are going to change, or at least at that level, there's a policy mindset around unshackling the handcuffs. Are we expected to see things happening within, say, the next year? What do you think? What do you think this means, Costin, in real, actual events happening on the ground?
Well, again, this was one of my questions. How much of this is just talk and how much is how things will be from now on? But I guess that if time has come for a new way of approaching these things and doing more offensive stuff, more computer network attacked versus computer network exploitation, I would say that you need to do this in a manner that allows you to gradually increase the volume and see what is too much and what is too little. So probably it can start with smaller things like interference, I don't know, into elections, kind of fake news propaganda. But not here, like there, obviously. That might, let's say, have some kind of an effect on people voting, and then you can increase this into more, let's say, tangible things.
Play the long game. You're saying play the long game.
I say gradually increase things. Don't drop the nuclear bomb. Don't drop the hydrogen bomb the minute one. Leave it for.
I see that you went for. I see that you went for hydrogen. I see that you went for hydrogen instead of nuclear. Saying nuclear.
I don't have a bigger one.
Well, but that's my point. I actually disagree there, and it's frankly because I think the US has look, I love this country. I first generation American, I genuinely love this country. But it is sad to see the greatest cyber power on earth literally sitting on its fucking hands, not doing shit with a whole realm of capabilities that it has access to. And part of that argument
Yeah,
has
but
been
Mohuan, you went from dropping like I mean I'm trying to
But
understand
well,
what we can
no. Hear me
expect.
Hear me out on this one. I'm not just trying to be like jingoistic or ridiculous. Actually, all these fucking academics have been talking nonstop about deterrence in cyber. The way deterrence works is I give you a credible idea that I have a bigger stick and I am fucking willing to use it if you don't chill the fuck out. And what America has done is say, oh, we have the biggest stick. Surely people are gonna think about that if you know, before they do something. And you go, why? You've never fucking used it. You've never used it. Even your I'm sorry,
I don't
but
know about that.
even Stuxnet, even the wonderful world of Stuxnet, it was not the nuke. It was the subtle sabotage. It was the slight, let me slow you down a little bit. They didn't fucking just break everything and go, oh, you're back to the Stone Age. Peace, bro. Like they could have. We hear that they could have done it, but they didn't. And my point here to Kostan's statement earlier is like, I actually think that with cyber, which is not like dropping a bomb, it's not clear that this is where things came from, right? Like look at Spain and Portugal right now, right? You have this power outage and we're all sitting around going, was it cyber? Was it not? It could have been cyber, could have not been cyber, right? Like when you want to talk about having the biggest stick, the biggest bomb, and you want people to think about that before they step out of line, you have to drop a couple so people know you're fucking willing to do it. Maybe not your biggest one. You drop a you drop a normal nuke on some these civilian populations in a kind of unfortunate, historically frowned upon way, but you do that in Japan, pretending it's for the Germans in the hopes that the Russians will chill the fuck out. That was the great chessboard. And with cyber, we have not seen that. We have been getting fucking pummeled all day long and going, it's okay, bro. I've got a fucking AK-47 in my pickup truck. If this drunk dude gets really bad, I swear I'm gonna use it. You go, dude, you're fucking dying already.
Look, I think the intention was interesting. If that was the intention of dropping the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki for the Russians to chill the fuck off, I think the outcome is even more unfortunate because now they have even more atomic bombs in the US and even bigger ones. So I don't know how that worked out.
I'm not saying that there was any way to win that one. There's a reason why the same people who invented the atomic bomb then spent the next 30 years talking about game theory and like the prisoner's dilemma. Like there's a reason von Neumann was essentially obsessed with like, it was either like we nuke them first or we're going to spend the rest of this time thinking about like defection strategies because there's no longer a clean way to do it.
I just want an answer to my question very quickly. Is
your
this
question?
is this a lot of talk, or are we gonna see some actual effects happening? And what does that look like in your mind, Juanito? If we start, let's say we start small, we start tiny. What difference do you want? What do you like? What are you asking for? We're not gonna drop atomic bombs. We're just like rattling on nonsense there. But like, what do you think we'll actually see?
I don't know. I do not know. But
you expect change?
I think that if there isn't change now, there will never, ever be change short of a catastrophic crisis scenario, which, I mean, our tolerance for catastrophes in the US is pretty low. Not to trivialize 9/11, but like it was 4,000 people. It was really tragic. It mostly shook our sense of like, you know, invulnerability in the homeland, but it was a relatively small event in the grand scheme of things. And yet it takes that kind of like, that's why you hear people from Rand talking about punctuated equilibriums, right? Like we are a nation that seldom, if ever, moves preemptively. We usually wait for the crisis before we actually decide what we're going to do with whatever. So to answer your question more directly, I don't know. There's two ways to there's multiple ways to go about it, but there's two main schools of thought here, right? There's the Kosan school of thought where you go, okay, we want to show that you can do this and that people have been ridiculous to be so overcautious. So let's start small and then you go to a little bigger and then you get a little bigger. And that's internal messaging. That's showing the inside that, look, we could have been using this shit the whole time and we didn't. It doesn't mean we're like, going crazy. You could do small things and it would be fine. That's if you want to send that message internally. However, that doesn't sound like this administration. I would expect this administration to want to show some fucking muscle, to decide, you know what? We're going to fucking blow up every water treatment plant in Iran. You go, wow, that's insane. You shouldn't do that. You go, we're going to do it one time. And then everyone else can just remember that. And we will be talking about this for the next, we've been talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki for 80 fucking years, right? Like you did it one time. America didn't have to go show off nuclear bombs in a bunch of other countries in every single conflict, right?
All right. I started this OpenAI Security Summit segment with a simple question. What is Aardvark? We still haven't...
What's an Aardvark? Yeah.
Do you even remember this?
What is an
Aardvark? I don't. I do not.
An hour later, I'm going to return back to the original question because we've seen evidence of Aardvark online. What is Aardvark?
By hour 3. Well, Aardvark is the naming alone is a testament to how much of a fucking nerd Dave Vitale is, because it's about an Aardvark is apparently an animal that eats bugs. So you can kind of see where the mentality of this is.
He is always named his products after these things, though. These
I'm
bugs
just
and
glad
worms
he's
and
like
so on.
not still talking about ants. But no,
Just quickly for the audience, Dave Vitale is on the technical staff at OpenAI, and I think he's doing security work there previously at Immunity, well known in the industry. Go ahead.
Let's call it what it is. I think it was OpenAI hiring Dave Vitale was an awesome sign to the security industry that OpenAI was taking that side of things.
It was not going to be all bullshit. That's
seriously. It's not all bullshit. And I've come on this, on this podcast before and said, damn, like talking to the people inside OpenAI kind of feels like Apple culty and lame. That was not the vibe this time around. And I fucking love it.
But I don't think that was the OpenAI people in that room, though. The OpenAI culture, but that's a different topic.
No. Look, I won't speak to the larger culture, but let's say OpenAI, as far as security people are concerned, is not that anymore. And Apple still is, right? Like, so you look at them getting someone like Dave Vitale and then giving them free reign, it signals to the security industry, we're taking this shit seriously. We actually want to play and we want to make an outsized impact. Okay, let's stop teasing it, right?
Kostian, is this man going to tell us what Aardvark is?
I was about to do it. You just stopped me. Fuck it. Let's go to a different story. No, okay.
IOX, man. Where's the IOX? Tell us the IOX.
The IOX are actually in GitHub commits. I think Aardvark is a really meaningful thing. So Aardvark is a model of some sort, some kind of reasoning model that has been A, fine-tuned, and B, given all the right tools and a lot of really interesting engineering that we don't necessarily know.
An internal OpenAI private thing, yes.
It's an internal OpenAI private thing, and it may stay an internal OpenAI private thing for the time being. But essentially what Dave did was get this model and start, he trained it, he figured out how this shit was supposed to work, and he started turning it on open source repositories on the internet, and like big, well-established ones, OpenSSH, Postgres, and what else did he mention? Damn, I'm forgetting the other one, but PHP. And this thing is going through these well-established code bases, and it was actually finding bugs that then Dave and folks were validating and then sending the reports in. So we started to get some semblance of where this was going a few weeks back when we start to see screenshots of like commits for fixes that go reported by OpenAI security team, reported by, so one of them actually said reported by Aardvark. And we were
Aardvark,
like,
that's where I first saw
a
it,
couple
yes.
of people who were paying close attention were like Mike Hom was like, yo, what the fuck just happened, right? Like there's people who know this space well enough who are like, some shit just went down. And frankly, some shit just went down. Like this is a meaningful moment. Part of, I wish Dave Vitel's talk would be public, because what it started to show was something that we've been missing in this debate for a long time, which is an understanding of how bugs are getting introduced into these big code bases. Think about something like PHP or OpenSSH. The commits, the changes, the growth of this project is openly visible in incremental steps. That's what GitHub does for you. So you can watch a whole history of people, like different, you know who did it, who committed this line at this time, and how the project grew. So now that you have this external evaluator, this model that can look at that code and go, there's a bug here, there's a bug here, there's a bug here, there's a bug here, there's a bug here. And mind you, we're talking bugs. We're not talking exploits. We're talking bugs, right? There's a difference between a vulnerability and an exploit. Suddenly you start to get an understanding of the dynamics of how bugs are introduced into code bases. So Dave Vitel literally pulled up a chart and said, well, what we understand with Aardvark now is that there's an average of 1.5 to 1.7% commits that introduce bugs into a code base at a steady rate. I've never heard that shit before. And it's fucking fascinating. You're basically saying there is a rate of entropy at which these code bases are steadily degrading. It's a 1.7%. And like maybe we'll scale this out and you find out that it's higher, that it's lower, whatever. But there is, for people who want to understand what it is that we're dealing with when it comes to open source projects, why this is so problematic, is there is an entropy that's being continually introduced into this code base by virtue of people growing the code base and working on it. And there isn't an equivalent counter force that's maintaining or pushing back against that entropy. So in a sense, this is the first introduction of a mechanism that could possibly start to account for that in a way that is scalable. Because nothing the government ever said about open source security ever made any fucking sense. Who are these people that are fixing the things? Who are these people who you're like, who no one is paying, who's going to spend all their time just reading through 400,000 lines of OpenSSH commits every single day trying to fix this shit? That was never going to work, which is why they espoused all this Rust bullshit so heartily, because we told them, if they write it in Rust, then it's perfect. You go, perfect. Get everyone to write everything in Rust. You go, nah, bro, like that's not it. But you needed this like God from the machine to show up.
Is it a fuzzer? Because we know I've seen the Google open source team doing fuzzing and on open source projects. What's the difference?
And that was the big point. This is not a fuzzer, which was a good contrast against all these fucking academic presentations where you see people, the LLM can run the fuzzer and then the LLM will get the bug out. And you're like, yeah, cool. But all you're saying is like the LLM can orchestrate these tools that were kind of brute forcing the problem. So that's not an understanding. That's just trying to automate the brute forcing.
What is it doing? Static, some sort of reasoning that goes back to
reasoning with tools. So it's static analysis where you've got a reasoning model that's been fine-tuned for this stuff that has been unhobbled and has access to tools. So it knows how to like break the problem apart into, ways that can be meaningfully put into a context window. It can write some Python code. It can test if this, it can test that code in this and that way. It can search the internet. It can do X, Y, and Z. And of course, like the real magic comes in the fine tuning and some of that, like, figuring out what the scaffolding should look like so that this thing can get reliable results, right? Like that's the issue with stochastic systems. It's a, it's a probabilistic system. You need to figure out what kind of harnessing is going to get you an ever increasing rate of success, because the thing is not deterministic. That's where the true work comes into it, and that's why you would hear me like talking and obsessing over the reversing side of this, which is like an analogous issue. Like Dave Vitale just went and did some, the shit that we were talking about, because fuzzing and all that, like you always had this notion, the same way as like running malware through a sandbox, where you go, yeah, we got this output. Do I trust it? I don't know, because I don't know if like the malware ran, if it had anti-VM stuff that we didn't figure out, if it was waiting for a specific date, if it would check if it needed an IP, if it wanted to see if you were on a Russian system in order to unlock all of its capabilities. And like I think only one sandbox I've ever heard of, Joe Sandbox, was the one that like would try to like sort of force these control flow in like different ways so that you would get that sense of certainty. But essentially, that's what comes with not doing static analysis. Dynamic analysis is a bit easier, but you have this uncertainty that you don't actually understand the code base. You don't actually understand everything that could happen. You just kind of rammed it through and you go, okay, I've got a more or less understanding of what's going on. Like I can work with this. It's a functional thing, but it's not an understanding of the code base. Static analysis, it's like the Agosha school of reversing. Like the only way you're going to do it is, you get smacked with a ruler if you pull out the debugger, and you gotta just go through IDA. And that's what Aardvark is essentially doing in its own way. It has binary ninja tool, as a tool. It can write Python, it can write, all these sort of different things to validate, it can search, and it turns out you start to find all kinds of fucking bugs. So like
that humans couldn't find?
I think the issue here is,
this is what I'm trying to figure out. Is this automating and removing how many humans in the loop, and how many humans are still involved with the validation on the back end?
So, and there you're asking the right question. So we shouldn't think about it as replacing. Like I think any arguments about replacement with AI
so
are
you're saying
short-sighted.
This work isn't being done, this reasoning over code isn't being done at all right now?
Yeah, it was
like
not
a brand
being
new
done.
thing. Okay,
that's my point, and that was my point with the government thing about open source security, right? Like we kept dreaming that's like the lie of open source. There are all these there's this crowd of magical people who are all crowdsourcing revising of a giant code base. Like we're all splitting it among 400,000 people. Everybody reviewed the code base. In reality, nobody reviewed the fucking code base. What Aardvark is doing essentially is allowing us to scale a certain amount of evaluative power to do things that were not being done, because the ROI, the return on investment of having a human being read every fucking commit with a fine-tooth comb to understand how it fits into the code base. Does it introduce this, whatever? Like there's small bugs. There's one of the ones they showed is like, there was a plus here, inside of a loop that meant that you were kind of like corrupting memory in a certain way. It's like simple, but I was staring at that code the whole fucking time. I'm like, I don't know that I would have caught that. I would have had to sit there and like really reason and like, okay, it's a loop and it was supposed to do 1, but now it's actually doing 2 in this way. I'm like, all right, cool. The point being, it's not worth my time to do this for every single line, but it is worth compute time to have this machine do it. And then you get into the real problem now, which is it's taking longer. There are fewer bugs reported than there are bugs found, because it's taking them way longer to validate that the bugs are legit and document them and whatever.
It's not some hallucination, right?
Well, not even just a hallucination, but is it really a bug? Right? Like, does it think it's a bug, but when you go look in the code base, it actually isn't. It's doing what it was supposed to be doing. Like, you need human beings to like go in and validate and evaluate. I think that will change with time to some extent, but I think it goes to show like a bigger dynamic in the anything LLM AI space, which is QA is going to go from being the shittiest job that you put the worst people in because you have to do it, but nobody wants to work QA, to being one of the most important jobs, which is
with unlimited resources, right?
Right. Right. I mean, look, now the thing is, this thing could very well be amazing and automate. It will automate 90% of amazing shit, but we need to figure out where the 10% is where it's failing. So all of a sudden, QA is not the shittiest job. It's where you need the most specialized people.
Costin, I've always been skeptical of these big OpenAI, big tech bros, the San Francisco bros, like Juanito calls them, making all these outlandish promises around, removing entire bug classes with AI and so on. Does this read to you like that, or is this something somewhat impressive that we're actually tackling a place that human work isn't going into anyway? And just to bookend that, you have in the past said, listen, watch these OpenAI and these big AI companies, because these guys are well positioned to really, really get monetization around security, or build security tooling, or build threat intelligence tooling. Is this something that is kind of what you were expecting to come out of those companies?
Well, remember what I said the last time, which was that I think AI models should be extremely good at finding bugs. I think for people developing AI models, it should be pretty easy to train them on things like vulnerability databases, exploit databases, and just let them run and try to find more bugs. So in a way, it's good to have confirmation that this is not only possible, but this has actually been implemented and it's working. And in the end, it's working because it's finding bugs they are reporting in these projects. I think it's a very interesting experiment, and I think probably the emphasis here is that it works on open source projects, meaning that they're starting with the things for which they have the source code. And of course, like the holy grail will be to find these bugs in compiled code, and to be able to identify vulnerabilities as well as supply chain attacks. I think that would be also very interesting. Now, of course, that I have a lot of questions for Juan, and I think it would have been probably amazing to be at that talk. So, like for instance, one of them would be, what are they planning? Let's say that they're starting to find hundreds of these bugs. Like they solve the problem of confirming the exploitability. They get another model which becomes very good at developing the exploit, so weaponizing the code.
Chain, yeah.
And then you have both the gun and the bullets, so like you just need to put them together. The question, what do you do with it?
My
do
question
you sell
is,
them? Do you report them to vendors for free, like all of them?
So
what do you do? How
you
do
read
you,
my mind.
How do you make money?
I'd love to answer, and I think I'm being ranty to the point of like monopolizing the discussion. So do push back. But like, there's two really important things here. One of them is clearly OpenAI is taking it seriously. It's taking security seriously beyond this, right? Like they hired Dave Aitel, and they've clearly given him carte blanche to do cool shit, and it's paying off. But they're going further into it. What was announced at the very end of the whole thing was
you buried the lady?
Dude, I've got so much. I just like I would be lecturing for 2.5 fucking. I took notes so that I wouldn't forget, you guys. I came prepared for one time. I came prepared.
I always interrupt you when you're about to drop the bomb. Go ahead.
I know, which is why like I'm just not gonna. No.
Admit,
at the very
you use
end
the
of
glasses to record everything.
Yeah. I was transcribing a lot of shit too, just to not forget. But like it's mostly just me talking. Anyways, come on. Matt Knight, who is their CISO and is like a legit security dude who's been around like for a while doing cool shit, announced that was his last day as CISO at OpenAI. And we were all, you had like 30 seconds of like, oh my God, is he leaving? And you go, no, he's transitioning to a technical role again to focus on security. So you're literally shifting someone from your C-suite, which I think is a strong endorsement of saying, hey, we were willing to do it with, we were willing to invest and bring Dave, and clearly it's working well. So now like, let's index further. So I think there's two ways to take that, which is, I think as a vendor in the security space, your ears better be perking up because the dynamics are about to change. They've already changed and they're going to change further, which I think is really interesting. To be honest, in an industry defined by failure, I will take categorical change, even if it means discomfort. There's another thing that I thought was, my mind went exactly or similarly to where Kostin's went. We actually had a surprise drop in from Sam Altman himself,
Oh,
the
wow.
Twink Lord himself, showed up.
Oh,
which
wow.
it was fucking cool.
Did you get your
It was,
selfie? 'Cause I
no,
know-
no, no. I had to. I kept my fanboying to myself. But no, Sam showed up, and it was awesome because it wasn't. He didn't show up to do canned remarks or give us some bullshit talk and run out of the room. It was just 30 minutes of Q&A. Like, just literally walked in, microphone. What do you guys want to talk about? And I asked the question. Well, you now have this thing. When we crafted the Biden, when we were helping. Let me not over aggrandize our role as as a community. When we were helping with the Biden cyber strategy, the big focus of the Biden cyber strategy was we need to shift the incentives because the dynamics in the space right now are incentivizing bad shit to happen, including all of this reliance on open source code that nobody has an incentive to maintain, nobody cares about fixing, and so on. So I asked Sam, like, okay, you just fucking blew it out of the water with a certain level of capability that you can now scale up to start to fix, to start to push back against this steady rate of entropy that's being introduced into the code that everybody needs. Are you going to take it as a humanitarian effort to essentially spin up those fucking GPUs and start going through all open source projects, essentially because that's what that's what OpenAI is going to do. That's one of the benefits to humanity, right? Like, to the extent that it still has some nonprofit mentality and they want to support, you're telling me you got this thing. You can sell it, sure, and you should sell it to whomever, but there's the other side of this, which is just the supporting of like the ecosystem. And like companies like Google and Meta and Microsoft have been supporting open source to some extent in their own way. But OpenAI is in a position to do something that none of them could have ever done before, which is to go, we've got all these GPUs sitting in the back doing jack shit right now. Put them to scan all of whatever open source project we all rely on and come out with a full security audit at a rolling, constant basis.
So you're asking the man for charity, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And his answer was
that they were gonna think about it. No,
I think Kostin. I want to go back to the question Kostin asked you, because you're saying about finding these bugs. Kostin extrapolated into exploiting these bugs, building a model to do the full exploit.
Right.
For whom? Right? Where do these bugs and exploits go?
I think the question is more, I would rather tackle this question along the lines of the Luta security mentality, the Katie Masuris school of thought, which is, I'm not worried about the exploits. Honestly, I'm not worried about the exploits. I am worried.
Nobody cares about bugs.
No. But that's the point. I'm not worried about the exploits. I am interested in suddenly developing an understanding of the introduction of bugs at scale and how they result in big exploits, right? Like, we're talking, if you tell me like all these little bugs just keep getting introduced little by little into the code base, then how many of the exploits we have seen were the result of somebody making a big categorical fuck up versus
something systemic, a systemic problem, right?
Exactly. Like this Durkheim enemy style mentality of like, this is just a statistical certainty that it's going to continue to be introduced into any code base. I'm really fascinated by that. And then like, I am asking for charity to some degree, but I think it's almost like it comes great power, great responsibility, right? Like the reason we've been bitching about like the amount of power and compute, whatever that Google has, Microsoft has, or like the amount of IOC's telemetry that Microsoft has, and like, you're not sharing, you're not helping. It's because what these companies do publicly looks paltry compared to the capabilities that they have. And when you see a small company that comes out with some really cool security thing, you go, awesome, bro, well fucking done, thank you. When you see Google Tag come out with something of the same scale, you go, the fuck are you doing? And it's not because you, like, it's an unfair thing. It's because you say, hey, you guys have planet scale capability. You should be giving us something truly revolutionary. That's the expectation that I'm coming to OpenAI with now. You go, okay, you're going to take security seriously. I have no doubt that if they choose the right, like, go-to-market channels, if they figure out how to, because on the other point that Sam Altman made quite wisely is, we want, if there's such a thing in AI as the operating system versus the applications, OpenAI is committed to being the company developing the operating system. So other people need to fucking work on the applications. And Richard Danzig made the same point about the US government, which was, if we are counting on these frontier labs to, like, continue to push the bar forward and figure the AI part of it out, then what government in the US needs to desperately be doing right now is building all the connective tissue and the interfaces that says, okay, you guys have got this. We're going to build the infrastructure that stuff is going to need to plug into. And you have a similar thing with sort of this thing with security, which is they're building the model. You have to figure out what the ecosystem has to look like. Assuming Dave Eitel is going to keep doing cool shit, assuming Matt Knight is now going to keep doing cool shit, assuming that when you're willing to move a C-suite to a different role, it means you're seriously committing into a specific area. Then let's assume that OpenAI is, like, I'm not saying they're going to AGI this shit, but let's assume this Aardvark is just the beginning. It's only going to get better from here. So what does the ecosystem have to look like? And that's why I mentioned Luta. Like, this is where Katie Masuris has genuinely been pioneering in the space. She kicked off the bug bounty thing and we all went, awesome, bug bounties. And then she went on to do something else. And people didn't follow along, which is, what Luta's doing that's different than the bug bounty folks is they're worried about the patch cycle. They're worried about the part where you fix the fucking bugs. And that's the part that we need to start to consider is, look, Dave and Matt and Sam are gonna figure this shit out. And Google's gonna compete. And they have Gemini, Sec, whatever. They're gonna figure shit out, even though we haven't seen them report any fucking bugs, but, like, they're gonna figure this shit out. So if those dudes are handling the model part of it, what do we need to do to channel Katie Masuris and say, how the fuck are we gonna fix thousands of reports and, like, validate and make sure that the fact that we now have an awareness of these bugs is somehow going to translate into having more robust code and a more robust open source stack by virtue of that knowledge, right? Like, just because you know about the bug doesn't mean that everything gets fixed. Aardvark is actually pushing the patch, but you need to validate it. You need to, somebody who understands. That's where you see that QA flip, right? It's no longer, oh, it's a waste of time for somebody to go read this shit every commit and look for a bug. Now the QA is the really important part. We now have an automated bug pipeline. We need the person who really understands OpenSSH as a code base to sit there and go, yeah, this is a good patch. Yeah, this is a good patch. No, this is not. You're wrong here, right? Like, you need that part. And that's the part that the security industry needs to start fucking focusing on is, let's assume these dudes are going to keep advancing that line. How are we going to actually reap the benefits of what they're doing? If Sam were to take the bait, if Sam Altman goes, yeah, fuck it, I am willing to invest into this. It's going to make, the world better. This is the way that OpenAI is going to give back to the tech community for everything that it does. Cool. We now have an infinite fucking pipeline of bugs. How the fuck are we going to fix all this shit?
Are we running a risk of, like, flooding vendors with reports as well? If this thing works as advertised and we're slamming vendors with reports coming out of an LLMs with no rest and no human in the loop?
Absolutely. Which is why I think in the very early stages, this is being bottlenecked by, like, Dave's bandwidth and the folks in that team's bandwidth to validate these bugs, because they very astutely pointed out that if you just, like, flood these open source maintainers who are doing it for free on their own fucking time with a bunch of reports and they're not good, they're going to get pissed and stop listening to you. So that's why they've kind of really throttled it. But I think that the next thing is actually we're inevitably going to see a categorical change in what bug bounties, quote unquote, look like and what the patch cycle should look like, because bug bounties will stop making sense the way they're laid out right now. They will have to change. Casey John Ellis was there. CJE, we were like talking about it, right? Like from the bug crowd
He's
perspective.
drinking all the Kool-Aid, Costin.
We're all
he is
drinking the
drinking
Kool-Aid.
all the Kool-Aid.
I was hanging out with Rob Reagan, Will Pierce was there, Dreadnought guys, DARPA folks. It was fucking cool, man. It was a good time, but it was so security focused.
I think this is a very nice problem to have too many bugs that you need to fix. This is an amazing problem to have, because I mean, if you look at the Google report, the report that Google released recently about the number of 0 days exploited in the wild, there's actually, 75 0 days vulnerabilities exploited in the wild in 2024, which was actually a decrease from the number they identified in 2023 at 98. And I was thinking, like, there's a huge discrepancy. There's a huge discrepancy. Like, are you saying, well, at least the ones that were identified, but in the wild, 75, these kind of technologies, AI, LLMs looking for bugs, they have the potential to push 75,000 0-day vulnerabilities exploited in the wild. So there's like a huge discrepancy. I think that someone working in this field now, just learning, seeing how things work, they'll just leave OpenAI or whatever, start their own company, focus on the offensive side, and they'll fill the gap. They'll fill the gap between 75 and 75,000. And I think that we're not ready for that. And no matter what kind of program you have, like you said, even like patching those, it's absolutely out of the question. But I did think that this report from Google was like really interesting in the sense that they say it very clearly that the top producer of 0 days in the wild remain the commercial surveillance vendors, and in the end it's money. It's money that drives these things, right? They're like buying 0 days, they're selling those things further like as a package, so in the end it's money. So I think the money angle is super important in this story, and for OpenAI the money angle in dealing with these vulnerabilities will decide in the end which way it goes. That way.
You meaning OpenAI monetizing this and making sure that this becomes a business tool versus something for the common good?
Well, I guess one of the biggest problems for OpenAI at the moment is they're burning through a lot of money without still having a clear way to make it profitable. And some people are saying, that the way is the general artificial intelligence, the AGI, or whatever, and maybe there's other methods of making it profitable. But I think that in the end, you run out of money, and unless you find a way to balance your expenses, I think, it can go one way or the other. And it'll be very interesting how you monetize discovery of vulnerabilities at an unseen before scale.
I don't think this is this is where you're going to get the monetization path. I don't think, and I think OpenAI is smart enough to know this. They have to. Is this
one of those moonshot kind of like they have a lab and they're just like, guys, go experiment and try to find that moonshot thing that's going to give us the security revenue, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason I mentioned the go-to-market strategy, right? Like, listen to what Sam Altman said, right? We are going to be the OS company, and it's up to people to do the apps. Even though OpenAI is willing to invest into having like Dave and Matt and everybody, like they're doing it to build a specific, like they're basically building the engine. They're not building the car. And I think that's important, because for anybody who's like sitting around lamenting that like the LLMs are going to take our jobs, like, no, bro. If you want to stay ahead of this, if a true AI transformation in the time of like product companies in 2025, 2026, up to 2030 is gonna be about how do you create the channels that drive that evaluative engine to making a difference in what people use and are willing to pay for. And OpenAI is making it clear that they're not interested in trying to create the channel partner part, the brand, the endpoint agent, the platform thingy, the widget, and the plugin. They want other people to make it on the basis of them building this really amazing engine, right? And I think people need to stop licking their wounds and adapt. It's the only way to survive is going to be to adapt. And I think the reason you hear me so excited is there has been a natural limitation on our ability to succeed. And if Dan Geer is correct, which I like to think that he almost always is, cybersecurity may very well be the most challenging intellectual endeavor we could engage in. And I say that not to fluff us up, but rather to say, look at it, we've been fucking failing nonstop for 30 years. And to me, I don't like sitting around licking my wounds forever. I don't like sitting around lamenting the same problems this year that we had last year, that we had 5 years ago, that we had 10 years ago. So clearly, we should not be happy with the state of things, which means we should welcome a big fucking paradigm shift like this.
We should be careful. We should be careful with vendors and these promising though, because I walked the RSA show floor for 2 days, bro, and every fucking vendor there had AI sprinkling in there to reinvent the
but they're
SOC.
fucking lying. But you know they're fucking lying.
But wait a second.
You know they're fucking lying.
Where is your critical eye to these people promising AI is going to fix everything in cybersecurity?
Well,
like,
they're
come
not.
on.
They're not promising it's going to fix everything. They are saying they have created a thing that didn't exist before. And frankly, I think that Dave is underselling, like he's being so humble that he's underselling this moment because what they just revealed, if this is the worst it's ever going to be, what they just revealed is an accelerant that we have been dying for. And it's getting here, right? And it's not just OpenAI. You look at Expo, our friend Nico Weissman's shop, and
Correct.
they're doing similar things. And they're coming
in
up
the
with
web app
cool
space.
fucking
Yeah.
bugs. So like you have all this stuff coming. And I hate the RSA thing because everyone is saying they're doing AI, but they're not doing anything meaningful. So it's fucking waste of time and a fucking waste of money. But that does not mean that that's the wrong path. The problem is that you're just getting fed marketing.
Right. The idea that only OpenAI can do this is also being naive as well. You have to assume that the Chinese are experimenting with these. The DeepSeek folks are experimenting with these. So is this a race about who has the most computing power and who has the most resources and people to throw at the problem? And then is this the next stage of what this balkanization will look like in the future?
I mean, we're well in the balkanization. We are well in it, right? There's a reason Alexei Bulazel talked about like the obsession around rare earth minerals and like energy, right? Like the other day, the Chinese in a very Cold War 2.0 move suddenly came out to announce that they'd found like this ginormous amount of like thorium, and that they now have they have the capacity to build like these thorium reactors. So now they have infinite energy. That is not a bullshit science move a la Microsoft Majorana bullshit. That is a Cold War style signaling of fuck you, we're winning in a way that you'll never be able to win. And it's not, I'm not going on a tangent here. The reason everyone's fucking obsessed with energy all of a sudden and rare earth shit is that if this is the next thing, that is the real supply chain limitation, right? It's NVIDIA, and then it's TSMC and ASML, and then it's the fucking GPUs, right? And then it's the fucking hardware. But at the end of the day, you need the power to run these things, which is why Microsoft went and like took the site of the greatest nuclear disaster in the United States and turned it into a component of their AI stack in order to, like, 3 Mile Island is literally pumping energy again so that we can have chatbots, bro.
Hi. So Costin, you brought up the Google report, and I want to shift the guy because I don't want to forget it. There's a note in this Google threat intelligence report about the 0 days and where they're finding it. And this year they segmented like consumer things, browsers, and mobile OS and so on from enterprise products, which is like the Fortinets and the Ivantis and so on. And they made a note that vendors are changing the game. And you've argued in the past that raising the bar is significant and like don't discount these exploit mitigations. Google is claiming that vendor investments in exploit mitigations are having a clear impact on where threat actors are finding success. Decreases in finding ODs in historically popular targets like browsers and mobile operating systems, and this shift to these enterprise products. It reads to me like Google wants to pat themselves on the back, obviously, for getting mobile OS and browsers right with Chrome. But when I read that investments in exploit mitigations having a clear impact, and I put that against ODs everywhere and all these things are being popped and everyone is getting hit with ransomware, is there like a realness there in your mind that things are working?
Well, one thing I said before, if you remember, is that actually all these exploit mitigations, they do have an impact. Like making things more expensive means that less money are available to buy all sorts of tooling, which in the end, it means less attacks, less victims. So I think that what we are seeing here, well, of course, that browsers and mobile operating systems are doing better than 15 years old Linux 2.6 kernels running on super low-end hardware. I mean, yeah, no matter they're in, what was it? You were sending some photos, Ryan, of the magic wave and the magic quadrant.
Yeah.
And
wave.
everybody is a leader in the magic wave. And if they're not a leader in the magic wave, they're a leader in the magic star quadrant or whatever. And I do think it makes a difference if you're using them. But if you're still running your enterprise with 15, 25, 35 years old code, I mean, that's not going to help you. If you ask me, yes, you need to do more and more exploit mitigations, whatever that costs. Like that is the place where you want to invest. If you want to increase your security, invest in that field, because I think it's the most effective. I don't think that Google is hyping up things. I think they're just very realistic observation about how things look at the moment.
You mentioned me walking the show floor and taking videos and photographs of every vendor winning every award. They all win the same award
wave.
too. They all
The
win the
magic
same.
wave.
Yes, they all win the same award. But more fascinating to me was this contrast between right before RSA, the CISO for JP Morgan Chase, Patrick Opeth, published an open letter basically saying, listen, these SaaS vendors are shipping features more than security, and it has to stop. At some point, it has to stop. It has to stop. It has to stop. Then RSA opened up the next day, and I walked the show floor, and I'm literally walking past an Ivanti booth.
Stop.
No.
It's all new features.
I'm walking by an Ivanti booth and I stop by there and I asked the sales guy, it's like, how are you? Are you struggling to talk security here with all these 0 days and 0 days and attacks that are happening? Like, talk to me about how like your mindset here. Guy had no idea what I was talking about as regards to 0 days. He was
himbo like booth babe.
Dude, took me straight to the screen to point me at new features, and I'm like, what world am I in where the JP Morgan CISO is really like, issuing the clarion call that we need to hear, and I'm walking among this fucking shit show of everyone touting their features that is causing this, and I'm like, what is going on?
Can I admit that I misread that JP Morgan thingy in the sense that I actually brought it up to like Matt Knight during lunch. I'm like, oh man, like I wonder what happened to JP Morgan, because and I said this to you guys. Like, to me, I was like, oh fuck,
they got owned.
They
got owned. And like, and clearly, like, we're about to hear about some like big supply chain thing that like JP Morgan's dealing with. But Matt made the point, like, the CISO's apparently like a very sharp dude, and he's actually coming out and saying what needs to be said. And I'm kind of sad that I didn't like really kind of think of it in the right light, because I would like to commend somebody going out of their way to say, yo, like, we're a big consumer. We're tired of your shit. We don't want to keep buying these things that just keep increasing our vulnerability. Get your fucking act together. And it has to, like, when we say pay with your pocket, it has to come from a JP Morgan. It has to come from somebody that fucking big going, hey,
but the hidden point is that there's nowhere else to go. He's saying, get your shit together, because like it's a fragile ecosystem that has all this escalating effects. And the argument, we've talked about this on the podcast ad nauseum, like, okay, well, pay with your pocketbooks, like, you know, answer with your pocketbook. Where do you go? You can't go from Ivanti to Fortinet, right? Like, where do you go?
I mean, this makes me think about actually a couple of friends of ours, right? Like I'm thinking about Alex Perez Palma from Workday and Fede Kirschbaum, our good friend from Echo Party. And this is where I want to see, we're not going to start using Chinese software comfortably, but I would love to see a true bastion of amazing skill at a surprisingly low cost, like Argentina, suddenly becoming a player in the US market, where they go, oh yeah, you're tired of that Ivanti shit? Don't worry about it. We built you this like software stack with all kinds of
the entire Israeli ecosystem is this.
Yes, but
that's driven by VC profits.
No,
it's not driven by
Look, the Israeli ecosystem has fucking nailed it. The dream of, they have nailed the startup thing.
Okay.
They've figured it out, man.
Nothing has been fixed, right? Like,
no, they
Wiz got 32 billion from Google, but cloud security is still a giant shit show.
Well,
it's like nothing is fixed.
I would also suggest that them getting 32 billion is actually a move backwards, the same way that like buying Mandiant was a move backwards for the security space. The same way that again VT ultimately ended up being a move backwards in the security space, because like you're taking these things that were doing meaningful things that consumers could buy, and then suddenly subjecting them to having to make private equity sized returns. And it turns out it fucking kills that capability. But I what I was saying about the Israeli market is like if Jewish moms used to dream of their kids being doctors, now what you have is actually like they're dreaming of their kids being like successful founders, because it's been proven out in the Israeli mechanism. Like there are serial founders in Tel Aviv who just spin up a company, do really great, fucking sell it for a great mint, come back, spin up a company, do it again, do it 3-4 times. That said, that means that we are talking prices of $32 billion for an Israeli company.
It's making security a lot more expensive, and nothing is being fixed.
Well, yeah, I think they're fixing things right up to the point where they're going for the end game, which is beneficial for them, but not beneficial for us, which is, you know, they then become part of the behemoth. But that's why I want to look at, I think Argentina, if there's VCs listening, Argentina is a super special place that folks are not tapping appropriately. I think the money that you could be that you would invest to start one company or 5 companies in the US would start 50 companies in Argentina. And the reason I'm pointing to them is we have a shit ton of security talent there. Those people have been doing like amazing shit for 30 fucking years. Why are we not consuming from them?
Why aren't you reading the room? We want our factories back here. We want our factories back here. You're pushing our.
Why are you guys, both of you, reading the room? Like, don't you know that Argentina and Romania were like brothers? Like the language is almost the same. Like here, the biggest pool of security talent.
I mean, honestly, yeah. It's like, what was it? Budapest back in the day, where you got like every genius was coming out of Hungary for a certain period of time, and you know, now you've got Romanians and Argentinians. We'll take it. Israelis.
One of the presidential candidates in Romania is a mathematician who actually won the Math Olympics twice. So Romania is one of the few countries who won the Math Olympics thanks to this guy.
I learned all this shit from you. You don't have to convince me on like the intellectual abilities of Romanians. What I want is to convince VCs on like, instead of funding companies that are then taking that money and hiring like 400 unskilled workers in India or Costa Rica and pretending that that's a fucking win. How about you take that money to places where you have high density of talent, and at a fraction of the cost, you can make more meaningful things happen. Like, look, not to go back to the AI shilling, but one of the reasons I'm excited about all this AI shit, like empowering human beings in an asymmetrical way, is I would love to see a 5 hyper specialized genius Romanian or Argentinian company that can spin up a enterprise grade product in 3 months using between their skills and the amplification of your vibe coding to some extent, and come out and compete in the same way. And I don't think I think that part with really specialized humans in the loop, we're already there. We just
Right, but
haven't
I mean,
seen a good breakthrough yet. Like
yeah, but these big
breakout yet.
financials will never use software. This fragmentation is real, and this kind of not nationalistic, but they're so heavily regulated and so on that they're never going to rely on an Argentinian piece of software to plug into. What JP Morgan is talking about is our cloud infrastructure here that has this cascading effect, and the fact that they keep shipping features and you can't use the cloud securely at all. I mean, it's and nothing is changing because they are driven by profit, and the profit comes from the features, and like this cycle just keeps repeating and repeating. And
But that's because like that's the market the way it has existed up until now. My point is, if you can
speak with your
change.
pocketbook isn't relevant though, because there is
No,
nowhere
no,
else to buy something.
but that's there. You fucking nailed it. That's my point.
I'm saying,
You
but
can
my point
now.
is, if the Argentinians make it, you still can't buy it from them. Like
I mean, you can look just because I actually don't think that's true. I don't think we have a problem buying software from most countries. We just don't want to buy it from China and Russia. You don't like look. People use a shit ton of Indian software right now.
True. Zoho and all these things are like
Yeah,
embedded all
no,
through enterprises.
it's
Very
not.
few people know what's actually coming out of
It's
India.
not complete balkanization. It's just saying we don't want to buy them from overt adversaries. Like most of the shit we use is being programmed by people in Ukraine, in Romania, and like all these different. What was the JetBrains thing? Like, where those guys were like from the Czech Republic, I think. Like, there's a lot of shit people use that you don't even know where it's from because it's not being problematized for good reason. And my point here is that the market won't really give a flying fuck about that. If you suddenly get 10 competitors to Ivanti and they're all fucking killing it, you think that JP Morgan is going to be like, yeah, but it doesn't smell like apple pie. Like the CEO doesn't drive an Escalade.
I think the regulations
Fortinet.
will force them to think like that too.
I think that's fine. So you don't get JP Morgan as your first customer, but you can eat whole chunks of this market. And
We lost
hopefully
Costi.
that's gonna, yeah, I don't, he got sick of this. He's over it.
All right, let me. I got another question for you before we get to the 3-hour mark. SentinelOne actually published a really fascinating paper. I don't know if it came out to your labs people about what it takes, how a top tier target defends against cybersecurity companies from like SentinelOne talked about its own targeting by North Korean, these fake IT workers, and some other incidents, some ransomware incidents incoming. 2 questions I have obviously is, why publish this one? Is this kind of like did you guys get popped and you're just kind of like giving me the precursor to the big report?
Yeah.
Give me the background.
No. So we are definitely giving you the precursor to the big reports, but it's not because we're suddenly going to start talking about having gotten popped. Look, first of all, yes, this is coming out of labs. Complete credit to Tom Hagel, Jim Walter, Alexander Milankowski, Phil Stokes, the folks that have been doing the real work at this point. I'm just out here AI navel gazing. They're doing all the real shit. I actually love this piece because I think it's especially it being dropped for RSA. To your point, Ryan, right? We didn't, I'm not going to speak for all of S1, but like, at a time when everybody's trying to highlight features, at least the research side of S1 felt that it was appropriate to say, hey, this is what we're doing to defend you.
Well, I
And
did
like
walk by
there,
your SentinelOne booth, and there were a
I
lot of
mean, look,
features. There were a
we
lot
were
of
gonna.
purple
That's
AI
right.
things there,
That's
bro.
right. So many features, man. You got some fucking. You want some
Purple
AI,
and
bro?
AI,
Like
and it's
purple.
like, what's going
Yeah,
on here?
purple's fucking dope. No, look, I'm not here to sell shit. I think that you've been speaking to something important, which is that companies like Avanti, Fortinet, et cetera, are surprisingly cavalier about the trust relationship that customers and consumers have with their vendors, right? Like the thing that the JP Morgan CISO speaking to, right? Like when I invite you to my home, I expect a certain level of decorum from you. I expect you to like, support the privacy and the stability of my house as my guest. And that's not how most vendors treat those relationships. It's just some fucking customer and like you're trying to squeeze
Correct.
money out of them and then move on to the next one.
Upsell first.
Um,
We got to upsell first
Right,
before we
you
move
got
on.
self. Yeah, but I think that something that we're doing at S1, and frankly, it's a mandate all the way from Tomer, CEO, to Steve Stone, my new boss, who I absolutely adore. Is this put your money where your mouth is approach to threat intelligence? We don't want to monetize threat intelligence. Moreover, we have a partnership with GTI, with Google Threat Intel, with the
You
Mandiant
don't have a
folks.
threat intel portal that I can subscribe and get private
Nope.
reports
We
and
will
okay.
not sell. We will not sell threat intelligence, at least for the time being. Our commitment is to, I think, change the dynamics of how threat intelligence works. And instead of chasing a 2-bit market for just a little bit
That's
of
what I was going to
money,
say. Is that an
like
admission that this is a 2-bit market for a little
it
bit of
is.
money?
Well, I think it's an admission that that we were, as researchers, as artists, we were so happy just for somebody to pay us to produce our art that we were not concerned as to whether it was actually meaningfully fixing anybody's life or improving anything. Like like when we were back at Great and like we would write these amazing reports about insane APTs, we weren't really sitting there going like, oh man, everyone's going to be able to defend against this threat that they're all facing. We were saying this is the coolest shit ever. It only exists in 3 computers on Earth. And like we caught it. Awesome. Like we get to show this cool thing. But like even the Yara rules, right? Like we all obsess over Yara. I love Yara. Kosin loves Yara. What do you run Yara rules in? What product is actually allowing you to deploy Yara rules in your environment in any meaningful way? Right? Like, so there's always been this almost like IDGAF approach to like the handoff from threat intel to actual defense, where you go, well, that's not my fucking problem. Good luck.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I think something that we created this new, I feel almost uncomfortable talking about my work at S1 because like I don't like I'm cool shilling for OpenAI. I'm not cool shilling for a day job. But like I'm really proud of the fact that like our CEO is willing to say, yeah, we will forgo that market, leverage this, and we have it's not that it's pure altruism. I think we have an understanding that if you don't hold people for ransom on like the intelligence they need to defend themselves, if you don't, like haggle over like, oh yeah, we'll tell you your house is burning down and I'll tell you how to like fix it, but like I'll give you my hose, but you better pay me 80 grand first. Like that's a bullshit sales strategy. Why not leverage that threat intel in order to then say, hey, would you like us to clean this up for you? Would you like us to, support, whatever the product is there, like MDR, DFIR, like let's do all the shit that supports a healthy ecosystem of actually remediating on the back of having amazing threat intel and having a proper data fusion. And, we invested into Synapse. Like I love, like now we're getting all this integration into Vertex Synapse. So anyways, I really tangented way out from the post, but like,
But the
basically,
post fits into the post. The point you were
yeah,
making is that the post fits into that outlook where we're not selling
the,
threat intelligence. We're
yeah,
going to be sharing data publicly or
yeah,
like
the,
making it
the,
part of a public good.
the post fits into like a general spirit of transparency of saying, look, this is one area that nobody's talking about that actually matters to everybody. We like every security vendor, and every vendor, but especially every security vendor is a top tier target we all quietly talk about how like, oh, we saw this thing, we saw that thing, but we don't want to really talk about it because the first perception is precisely what you asked me. Are you telling me that you got popped? And it's precisely what I asked of the JP Morgan person. Like, oh, does
Right.
that mean JP Morgan got popped? But like, and that's why nobody wants to talk about it. But I think how can you trust that when they're not telling you what they're doing? How do you trust that one of your security vendors isn't popped by DPRK IT workers if they don't tell you that they're doing anything to defend against DPRK IT workers? So like for
We,
us, like Tom Hagel gets to come out and say, hey, we've been pumped. Like not only did we find 1,000 applications from DPRK IT workers, but because we noticed this, like these motherfuckers were so brazen. I think actually we're operating at such scale that they applied to a role in labs, like for our engineering, like for our security research team. And when Hagel and St. Myers saw that, they actually went to talk to the talent acquisition team. We talked to the people who are doing the hiring, and now we're pumping all of our hiring data into Synapse. So like it's part of our threat intel data set. It's part of our data fusion. It's part like we've created a pipeline that actually means that our talent acquisition team knows that just by virtue of the systems they use, they're going to get flags from us saying, don't fucking talk to that person. Or actually, could you please schedule an interview with that person for us? Like Hagel's just sitting there fucking waiting to try to have a conversation with one of these like DPRK IT workers. Funnily enough, everyone's obsessing over the DPRK part. I think the Chinese one is even more interesting, but we'll have a post coming out in a few weeks about that.
we got Costin back. We had lost you for a few minutes, Costin.
Yep,
We were talking
I'm
about
back.
the SentinelOne report on like threat actor targeting of SentinelOne itself. And one of them is the line I think you were referring to, Juanito, is our team has tracked roughly 360 fake personas and over 1,000 job applications linked to the PRK IT workers operating, including a brazen attempt to secure positions in Sentinel Labs itself. And I'm asking you, can you say with certainty, or can anyone say with certainty that they don't have a few North Korean IT workers maybe scattered in an organization when you're up to 15,000 employees or 20,000 employees or these big organizations? You can't know for sure, right? I mean, one of these 1,000 applications could have slipped through the cracks.
On our side,
Never. Of course not.
on our side. No, on our side, I'm fairly confident because at this point, we're also really familiar with the TTPs of what they're using. And to be fair, here's what I think is interesting.
These guys are
going back.
good. These guys are good.
Well, actually, not to. I don't want to paint ourselves as also like 10 feet tall. I was talking to Dan Guido at the OpenAI event, and if you remember, he's the CEO.
Nonstop, yeah.
Dude, it was all cool. It was all the cool kids. All the cool kids were like, no, but if you remember,
he's the one who was targeted. We spoke about this last week. Yeah,
he was the one that was targeted. The CEO was targeted with the Zoom thing, and what he was telling me is that like it was a relatively personalized approach, but there was no follow through. And that's something that we've seen a lot of, where like we keep trying to schedule interviews with these guys and they don't come through. But I don't think it's like, guys, like I think this is like a genuine massive scale play. Like massive. Like I honestly, what we may be seeing is some kind of mega automation, maybe LLM play where they're fucking spamming job postings literally everywhere, and then
spray and
whatever
pray
they get
nonstop,
around to, but that means they're hitting everything and everyone and waiting to see which ones like the low hanging fruit actually are to follow through, which is fascinating because dude, there's been like a couple it's like the FBI and then maybe like 3-4 companies have posted things saying, yep, we saw this, it was fucking weird. But if this is as scale of like Trail of Bits is an awesome company, but it's a small company. If they're applying to Trail of Bits in a non-targeted fashion, in a non-follow-through fashion, that means they're applying to literally every fucking job posting on Earth. And why are we only hearing about this shit from 4 companies?
Yeah. We're past the 2 hour mark, and I promise myself we'll never do a
3 hour
3 hour
episode.
episode. We'll
3
never do a
hour
3 hour episode. But I got a bunch of small things I want us to
Wow.
touch on
Fucked up.
quickly. I wanted a bunch of small things I want us to touch on quickly just so we can get him off the list. France issued a paper this week accusing Russian military intelligence of cyber attacks dating back to 2017. This is this APT-28 Fancy Bear Group military intelligence group. All old stuff. Suddenly France is like, hey, attribution, Russia, we go into the United Nations and complain about this unacceptable nature of things for something that happened at the 2015 sabotage of TV Monde, French elections in 2017. There must be a reason, Costin, there suddenly in 2025 we're hearing about attribution for 2015 and 2017 things. Why issue this now?
Oh yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I think it's budget.
must be
Maybe
a
for
reason, though.
budget. Yeah, budgeting. Typically, we do this when you need budget. Like that's why we do it.
You think
So
it's
maybe
just
it's budget.
internal? You think it's local internal, or there's some sort of public signaling for something, Juanito? There must be a reason. You're not going to come out and make a
Well,
big noise around attribution and see issued a technical report as well. There must be some reason for it.
I mean, what's
Budget.
and this is no. No, I don't think personally I'm not assuming it's budget. I feel I am too ignorant, and because you just called me, I don't have enough time to ask O3. But I would imagine that this is a broader, slightly whole of government push against Russia in some way, and this is the
The
cyber
beginning.
part. No, this is the cyber component of that, which is to
Come on.
say,
Nothing has
no,
happened
no.
since 2015 and 2017. You couldn't find
Well,
something newer to say.
but that's the low hanging fruit, right? Like that's the easy one. That's the one where you don't have to declassify anything, right? To me, I have no fucking clue why
Wait.
you
I
would do
think
this.
Costin is right.
If I might write just a small parallel
Please.
here,
Yeah.
why I suspect it's budget related is because like recently, the interim president of Romania just came on national TV. I think it was Wednesday this week, and he just out of nowhere suddenly said that like, guys, we really need to increase the military spending. We need to put more money into defense, like la la la, la, and so on and so on. So to me, it sounds like, yeah, suddenly a military budget or any kind of budget that can be used to deal with Russia, fight with Russia, like, and any kind of examples that you can use for that are most welcome. So if you're looking like at Europe as a whole, not just to France, and this particular incident, I would say that everybody is ramping up their military spending. Everybody wants to have more money into defense to either buy weapons or develop systems, cyber, and so on. And I think that probably this is just the best examples they could find to justify the required additional spending in cyber to fight GRU, Russia, and so on.
I think someone linked it to possibility that France and Poland had also signed some sort of what do you call it? Some sort of defense pact agreement. Yeah, it could be related to that.
Poland is for sure very important in Europe because they've been kind of setting the trend there. Poland, for many years, while everybody else was just sitting and watching, Poland was spending more money on defense, buying more F-16s, buying more attack MS systems, buying more tanks, buying more Abramses. And now everyone is like, yeah, we should be more like Poland. Like even presidential candidates here were like, yeah, my program is that we should be more like Poland. And what do you think that we should be more like Poland? So I think, yeah, you're probably onto something there in regards to Poland signing treaties.
There was a
or
fear
agreements.
that the Polish might actually start like an incursion into Russia and decide to fight the Russians without anybody else's like okay. Like there was a genuine fear out here at some point that like, well, what if the Polish decide to go at it themselves, right? Which would be quite interesting. But like I think one thing I'll say specifically to France, this awakening of Western Europe, where you know the minute the U.S. suddenly credibly, once they finally fucking listened, once J.D. Vance went over there and made his point, and people like, oh, you guys were serious, whether you agree with it or not. the one government that has, in my view, really spun up to try to fill that leadership void is France. Like you see DGSC and ANSI and Viginum and all these different things where like I get the sense that there is a genuine interest in leading, and I'm happy to see it, because if it wasn't them, like I don't know who it would be, right? Like the Spanish are cool, Germans are cool, but
The
like
Dutch are the
guys,
best.
well, the
Dutch
Dutch
are
are
the
the
best.
best. Dutch
There's
are
a
the
Dutch
well,
angle. This week there is a Dutch angle, by the way. We
really?
need
Tell
to
me.
touch the Dutch angle here.
You
No,
have
What is
come
like
on.
the Apple new wave of notifications for mercenary spyware. And there's like a new wave of Apple notifications, and in particular, there's at least 3 victims that we know of that came forward. One of them,
publicly acknowledge receiving this notice, right?
correct. One is an Italian. He's a journalist. I think at the same publication that we've seen before with Francesco Cancellato. So he works for the same online news outlet fan page. But there's two Dutch people. I've seen at
I'm
least
not gonna try to
on
pronounce the
X,
name.
they were saying a Dutch right-wing activist. So I think this is like a really interesting case here. The journalists in Italy, they were targeted because they were kind of anti-government, questioning government policies, with the government in Italy being like famously anti-migrant, if you want, right? And the activists in Netherlands, the Dutch activists Eva and Raisa, without pronouncing their family names there.
And just
Which I
because
don't
it's
think
Dutch
nobody
family
can
names,
blame
it's
us.
very, very long,
Absolutely.
yes.
They're being described as Dutch right-wing activists. So I thought it was kind
Interesting.
of an interesting targeting at the kind of the opposites end of the political spectrum here, meaning that you can get hit with mercenary spyware no matter what you do or where you find yourself
Well,
in
these
this
people weren't necessarily
political
hit
spectrum.
though, right? They were targeted. I think Apple, but there's a little bit of like nuance in the
Right.
notices.
Yeah, but what does it mean? Like that? How do you know that you weren't hit? And
True.
if you like,
Apple hasn't told you.
well, the way I see it, when it comes to these kind of things, the fact that you are targeted, I think the success rate of these exploits against iPhones, I think is pretty high. And by the way, there was
And you
an
view that
interesting
as-
detail. There was like a super interesting detail with Eva, because she posted the notification she got, and she even posted a screenshot in her iCloud account when she logs in on the web. It says that Apple notified her by email and iMessage, which
Yeah.
makes me
Oh
think,
my
oh yeah,
goodness.
she had iMessage enabled, which is like the top recommendation that I have to anyone, like
Lockdown
disable
mode that shuts that
iMessage.
off, right?
Just disable iMessage. And yeah, the
It's
fact
funny that Apple
sent
is
her,
using iMessage to deliver notices that you
they're
might have
doing
been
their
hacked by
best.
iMessage.
They're doing their best. They do say like enable lockdown mode, which means that she didn't have it enabled. So again, it's I think very, very likely that they were targeted and successfully infected. But again, nobody wants to say that you failed. You don't want to say you failed protect your customers. You don't want to say that your customers were infected. You say, well, they got targeted. We have indications that our customers were targeted.
And then good luck. Basically, those notices are as useless as the iMessage that it came in on.
Forgive me, is the implication, I'm guessing the implication here is like these Dutch people were hit by not the Dutch government.
My
don't
assumption
know.
was that
That's
it
a
was
good
a
question.
local, it was domestic.
I don't know, right?
I
Because
would think the same. In Italy, right? In Italy, they were going against the government. In Netherlands, they're going against the government's immigration policy. So it feels like the only people who care about them would be people in their own governments. At least that's how I read it.
How do you read it, Juan?
I don't know, because I honestly, I don't know enough about the local politics, and I don't know enough about these people. But the reason I asked is since we're coming at this on the back of the French, if it's a foreign government, I would fucking love to see what the Dutch do in response, right? Like, if it's the Dutch, then you're like, oh fuck, like
They're
this
less
sounds like,
handcuffed.
oh yeah, I mean they're the fucking cowboys of Western Europe, and they're fucking awesome at it. Like the
They're not the
Israelis are
cowboys.
the Israelis are the Americans of the Middle East, and the Dutch are the Americans of Western Europe. And they're gonna act like it, but in a cooler way. But yeah, I actually, so I was really fascinated by the way that the French government responded to the whole Pegasus shit show, and obviously it was in part because, like, you know, you're hitting the French president, kind of like you're kind of fucking with them in a way that no one's gonna like. But it also seemed to be part of this animating of this, like, okay, let's lean forward more from the French. And if we saw that from the Dutch, who are already out there and flying fucking colors doing cool shit, but suddenly they decided to go against some of like the mercenary spyware folks or like some of that stuff, that would be, I just think that would be fucking fascinating. At the same time, no, can we just agree that that calling PSOAs or mercenary groups or whatever CSVs is
Commercial
fucking disgusting?
commercial surveillance vendors is what that
I
means, right?
almost threw up when I
Comma-separated
saw
values.
that. What the fuck, guys?
Comma-separated values.
You cannot even you can't even pretend that you don't know this is a fucking naming collision that's this like disgusting, and like no one is gonna adopt this. Why the fuck did you do this?
What should we be calling them? In all seriousness, we don't need acronyms, but what should we be calling them?
Well, all I'm saying
Spyware is too generic.
No. We didn't need it, but fine. People like, what was it? Meta and Microsoft both
PSOA,
went
right?
with PSOA. Why
Private
the fuck
sector
would you
offensive
rebrand
actor.
that? Why? Look, Mandiant already got to brand the orbs. Cool. You got one. You got your name on it.
Orbs.
Nice. Now fucking go with everybody else on the other thing, and don't. This is fucking stupid. I don't want to. I don't want to see this ever again.
Pull that
I don't
microphone
ever
a
wanna
little
see this
closer so
again.
you don't have to.
I don't
yeah.
ever want to see this again. Dude, I'm not yelling because I have to. I'm yelling because I have to, if that makes sense, right? Like,
Quickly, Kostin, your old team at Kaspersky published a report on Russian organizations being
he
hit
says
by
it like he never fucking worked there. I never worked. It was your old team, Kostin.
Kostin, your old team published a very strange report, again without details. Second time in a row, we kind of get an incomplete report out of the great team. But this one is on Russian organizations targeted by a backdoor masquerading as secure networking software updates. Originally, you thought that this might have been the return of an Apex actor that we've been tracking. But I saw a subsequent report from who are the guys?
RT Solar. Yeah, the Russian Telecom Solar team.
RT Solar published a blog saying
They
that
keep
this
doing cool stuff.
speculating that this may be an East Asian threat actor based on what they've seen in a previous attack. What do you know about what this is?
What the fuck is an East Asian threat actor?
There you go. Tell me.
It's how you call Chinese actors from Russia. But well, I looked into this because I was kind of randomly looking at some of the most recent blogs from different vendors, and I came by the one on SecureList, which, by the way, didn't have many details. It seemed that it was kind of rushed out. None of the hashes were on VirusTotal. So it took me some time to find the sample, and when I found the sample, I was captivated. It's a super, super cool thingy. Maybe not so different from your typical PlugX
How do you find
chain.
a sample? I don't wanna divert
How did
the
I find the
conversation.
sample?
Yeah.
None of the hashes. First of all, none of the hashes were on VirusTotals, but some of the file names, in particular like msinfo32, by searching for those file names, you could find things which immediately led to the dropper archive, which are LZH archives. And in particular, like I said, maybe it's not so different, a signed loader which loads, insecure directory, loading another file from the same directory. And in this case, it was like, again, not surprising, but what was interesting to me was the loader itself, a 7 kilobytes thingy. it was really really cute. So there would be, it's like a loop which goes through the encrypted file and has the ability to resolve API calls on the fly. It uses SIMD instructions to decrypt the shell code in memory. So it seemed like it was a really cute piece of technology in only 7 kilobytes of data. And after you decrypt, you get the payload, you get the shell code. It's not similar to anything else that we've seen in the past. But this RT Solar blog, it actually talks about a similar attack which occurred 4 years ago in 2021 with the kind of the same mechanisms. And again, the best part of this is the target, and in particular this VIPNet software is a kind of a secure messenger, is the Russian equivalent of Signal that government officials use officially. So it's like pretty much their standard secure communication mechanism that was massively targeted by a RAMSEC Project Sauron back in the days. So to see the targeting again of this, in particular without Lua, Sauron relied heavily on Lua to do that targeting. But
There's
in,
no
in
Lua
this
here.
case, here's the, at least as far as I can say so far, there's no Lua. But unfortunately, the 2021 samples that RT Solar is talking about, unfortunately, you can't find them anywhere either. So I couldn't locate any of those 2021 samples. So I have only the 2025, which are on VirusTotal. The hashes are not public, but I think that it should be pretty easy to find them. And it feels like an interesting attack. Now, what RT Solar were saying is that it bears some resemblances to APT27, which is where their attribution goes,
What
East
is
Asian.
APT27?
APT27 is this perennial blue traveler, we used to call it, Chinese APT group that is super active in Russia for some reason, like one of the Chinese groups with a heavy interest in Russia over the years. So it would make sense if you want to be that, unless it's somebody more sophisticated trying to piggyback as APT27.
From the great report, the targeting includes various large organizations in Russia spanning government, finance, industrial sectors. The fact that this report appears rushed out tells you what? Anything at all?
I would say that, well, some of the people that I know, they said like there's kind of a big panic in there, like about finding this thing. It was kind of successful and it's in a lot of different places. So the fact that the report was rushed out on the Kaspersky side, I guess it's a
Early
big
warning,
thing.
some sort of
Super
early
important.
warning.
For sure, it's an early warning. I would expect them to have a private report, distributed to their customers.
Is it an early warning when or is it like RT Solar is publishing? So like we just gonna put, because like it was so rushed, it was so half baked. It's not even like properly put together, which is pretty kind of disappointing. Like
What
we
does
would
that
not
tell
have
you?
done that. They fucking rushed the shit out of it, and
Because
they,
no, I think the other one, the RT Solar thing came after this specifically as a response to this. Or are you suggesting that they got wind of RT Solar going with something?
I'm not saying it was a response, right? Like Kostin, if it was, if there was a private report, like remember REMSEC Project Sauron, if there was a private report that had been sitting there for 2 weeks, they would have copy pasted a lot more cool shit into this quick report. The fact that it's this sparse and like not well put together, to me says that there isn't a private report, because you would have already had all the material to like copy paste and just remove stuff. And let's remember that this is coming on the back of Forum Troll, which they fucking teased and like never fucking put anything out.
Well, I don't know what's happening, but I want to say at least one thing here, which is that RT Solar, they kind of had an advantage. In particular, they talked about this attack at PH Days a couple of years ago, and there's a recording available. It's a 1-hour presentation in Russian, unfortunately, about the 2021 wave of this attack. So Yeah, it would be interesting to translate that with AI into
Send
English,
it to
at
the
least
friends and
subtitles.
family chat.
I'll send it for sure. I'll send it so people can take a look. But I think that RT Solar, their advantage into publishing a much bigger, more detailed report is that they had all that research since the speech at PH Days. But again, remember that I did award that Goblin Rat report from RT Solar like one of the best researches of the last year when we did the talk. So I do think, yeah, this is
These
a
guys are
team
good.
to watch. These guys are good, and they publish interesting things. They find interesting things. So to me, that's pretty impressive, and they are worth watching.
Can we close the show with a quick segment on magic money, Costin? We got a guy. There's a guy who's been sitting on Bitcoin for about 8 years. Suddenly woke up and his wallets got drained. $330 million drained out of a Bitcoin wallet from apparently some elderly person.
What the fuck?
What is going on?
What?
Well, first of all, I want to say that $330 million. Maybe nowadays it doesn't seem that much, right? Like, it's another 300. What's $300 million for these people? But like these amounts to me are like mind blowing. Like it's staggering. And like only a few years ago, we were talking like, yeah, this guy had a few $100s stolen from their credit card. Like this guy had a few $1,000s stolen from their bank account. Now we are like, this guy had $300 million stolen from their Bitcoin wallet. Well, there aren't many details, but some of the suspicions and stories that I've seen so far, they kind of indicate that there was social engineering against an elderly person that was holding these Bitcoins. And I think one of the interesting things is that the whoever stole them, which doesn't sound, by the way, like Lazarus. This is not one of those cases that people said, that must be Lazarus, or this doesn't sound like Lazarus to me, because they immediately swapped everything into Monero, causing the price of Monero to spike up to $335 from $200. So it went up like 150%.
Who is this person that's just sitting on $330 million in a wallet? Like what? Because I didn't read this. I'm just coming. Who the fuck just casually has $330 million in one wallet, and they're like, "Oh, I forgot to check it. Oh my god, it's gone." You're like, "What the fuck life do you live?"
It's the power. Well, the insane growth of Bitcoin over the last 8 years. So they probably spent something like a few $1 million to buy that 8 years ago, which are now worth more than $250 million. And that's how much
but
Bitcoin
it wasn't
has grown.
Protected in any way?
I would say that the attackers somehow they found out like this guy bought it 8 years ago, and so they probably must have realized how it was bought 8 years ago, and then like, okay, let's go after this person and try to steal it from them. But again, there's no official details about this case.
Is there a world where this is Monero manipulation and not necessarily the theft? I mean, the theft, obviously, but is there a world where this is playing with pricing of things and doing things there?
I was thinking the same because, well, Monero has been under a lot of pressure because, being like the top anonymous coin in the world, it's been under a lot of attacks.
This is not the mixer world you're talking about, because usually when they steal it, it goes into the mixers and then they get all this
remember like what the Lazarus guys are doing, like swapping it across different chains, moving it from one thing to another. Then eventually they like to swap a lot of their stuff to Bitcoin. They like Bitcoin a lot. Well, these guys, they just swapped it to Monero, and somehow, well, most recently, if you remember, the Lazarus guys, they like things like Tornado Cash, things like that, right?
And the mitigation is to avoid it being frozen. In this case, when you go to is there a risk that all this stuff gets frozen?
Well, it's interesting that the Lazarus guys have kind of partly avoiding Monero recently, and I think that there's a lot of suspicions that there's companies out there with the ability to track these Monero transactions. So, for instance, the US government has been spending a lot of money on tenders to buy software that allows them to track Monero transactions. So, in particular, there was a super high suspicion a couple of years ago that a lot of the Monero nodes were under the control of one company and another, and they were being used part of a network to track the transaction. So maybe that's why the Lazarus guys are kind of avoiding it, at least recently. But these guys, maybe they're less experienced, not as good, and they're not as prepared as the Lazarus guys, who essentially just split the money into like 30,000 wallets, and each one of those wallets is
Mixing
moving
in,
the
yeah.
funds up to the way that it's becoming incredibly difficult for any human to track how the money are being laundered. So to me, it doesn't sound like it's a Monero price manipulation, but again, uh, well, the Monero
That's a
guys have
nice
been
side effect
under,
of it, yeah.
they've been like under a lot of stress and pressure. They've been delisted from Binance, I think about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, when the price was well above $300 for one Monero. And well, it's interesting to see that the price is spiking up. And with Monero, one of the most interesting things, nobody knows for sure how much Monero are actually being moved from one person to another. So, like the fact that the price didn't immediately crash, I think it's also partly because of this invisibility. Not just the fact that they are not reselling the Moneros, but the fact that it's one of the best privacy coins out there, which make it very difficult to estimate how the money are moving, to whom, and what's being done with them.
I just can't wrap my head around these numbers. It's magic money to
300
me
million.
anyway.
But that was my point from a few
From
episodes
the previous
back,
episode,
right?
yeah.
It's like it's just like
$5 billion. It's like,
who the fuck are these people that are just sitting around? Like that's who are these people that just can? Oh, I forgot I had 330 million just sitting there, and like I came back and it's gone. And like look, Kostin pointed out, right? Like it was some manipulation and laundering. One of the last times we talked about it. I insist that there is some deeply shady shit happening. It's a dark market. It's like it's just if we had seen the
It's
dark
magic.
markets like before a flash crash, like we would be
What do you have
seeing
against
moves like
magic?
this. But
One of the things
yeah.
that the European Union, in their wisdom, are moving to ban anonymous cryptocurrencies by 2027, and that would include Monero, by the way. And a
How
lot
the
of
fuck do you
comments were
ban
like,
that?
"How do you ban them?"
Right.
Well, I guess you can ban them on exchanges, so you won't be able to easily exchange them to euros or dollars or rubles or whatever. But
So are you gonna ban every DeFi company that connects as a
yeah,
bridge to
Yes.
the
correct.
It's all
sushi
snake
to
oil
the
bullshit.
sushi swap to the uni whatever to some other
Whatever happened to
bullshit?
Mr. Tanasi thing?
Going very well, by the way. The NASA
Yeah.
thing is going very well. If you're interested into that, you can check out CTI DAO DAO on
I don't know what the
X.
fuck gas fee means, so I tried, and then they told me about gas
Don't-
fees, and
Gas
don't.
fees.
I exited
Okay.
stage left.
Shout outs to Mr. Tanase, by the way. He was a bit sick, but hopefully he's now doing a lot better. Yeah, we all age.
CTI
but, like
DAO.
age is catching up with everybody.
Shout out to Mr. Vicente, who I ran into at RSA. He was actually
Wow.
in the airport.
He was
when
there.
He was in the airport in Spain when the blackout hit. He was actually sitting at the
Oh,
terminal
wow.
waiting to board, and then he checked all his
whoa.
group chats, and Malaga was hit, and everywhere was hit, and he started to be like, "Oh my God, this is cyber, of course." And we didn't even get to that story. So that's my shout out to the day. Shout out to Vicente. Hope you got back home safely. It was great to catch up. Just life stuff. Hello to Dasha and the family, everyone there. We would get the 3 hours, but Juanito has a plane to catch to get to PivotCon.
Really?
So,
You're gonna
yes,
fucking blame me?
I'm
That's
gonna blame
on
you.
me. I've
Give me-
slept 2 hours.
Close
I have
the
4
show.
hours before my flight. I could have nailed the 3 hour. This is not on me.
You got a list of shout outs. Close the show with
Oh
your
my
shout outs
God.
quickly.
I actually do have a fucking like a literal list of shout outs, but because I
And
didn't
here
want to
comes
forget.
the name
But
dropping. Go ahead.
well, look, I've already done a fair amount of name dropping, but frankly, that I think this OpenAI event was really cool. More than anything, I think it's being really undersold. What Dave showed is a big landmark moment here. So shout out
Oh,
to I think we crossed the
you know me. You know I'll fact
Rubicon.
check you and remind you of this
I
another
think
time.
we
But go ahead.
crossed a Rubicon here, and like let's talk about it in like 6 months.
Okay.
Like I'm not saying in 10 years. I'm saying let's talk about it in 6 months. Seriously, I think they're being really modest. Like this could, if Sam were to like clear them to go hot, like and just like this would change the dynamics of the space for the better, for the worse. I don't know. Like, but it would change the dynamics of the space overnight. So I like shout out to those guys, like having this amazing capability and deciding to do something meaningful with it in cyber, even when there's no immediate monetization for it. It's not to say it won't be a business, but like shout out to them. Dave Vitale, Matt Knight, like all the folks that put it together. Like it was just fucking cool. It was great to meet like Richard Danzig, see Alexei Bulazel, Perry Adams from DARPA, our good friend Perry, also like Tejas Patel, who we ended up sitting on the same, like right next to each other on the flight back. It was like as much time as you can beg for with a DARPA PM of all folks. And then like I met a bunch of fans of the podcast, man, like some folks from Israel, Alon from Wiz. There's a guy who works with Imbar Raz. I wish I'd caught his name. Like guys are like actually big fans of the podcast, which was amazing. And obviously Dan Guido was there, like Jordan Wiens, amazing friends for us. And one thing I really want to start pumping and like reminding folks of is I saw Will Pierce and Daria, who was at DARPA's. Now they're both at Dreadnode, and these guys are putting together Offensive AI Con in San Diego later this year. CFP is open. I think I'm going to submit a talk. I think I need to get this AI stuff out of me somewhere else so that it's not polluting this
Mr.
podcast.
AI now, man. You move from
Dude,
Mr. America to Mr. AI. Go ahead.
No. Look, man. When I came to cyber in the beginning, when I came to threat intel in the very beginning, I was but a lost philosopher / intel analyst
Looking for a home.
Somehow looking for a home. Look, I somehow got to contribute conceptual stuff to threat intel, and I'm not here to like become some AI guy.
You are though.
No, I'm feeling the same instinct I was
Your
feeling at the
brother's warning
beginning of
you.
this threat intel stuff. No, dude. I'm feeling the same thing as at the beginning of the threat intel shit, where you go, guys, like there's a way to look at this that seems much more intuitive, and I'm not seeing it anywhere else. And frankly, it's worse in AI than it was in threat intel, because the only ideology you can sign up for is the doomer idiot train. And it's like making me like insane. Like I feel like I at least need to put something. So like, oh, that reminds me. Shout out to Casey John Ellis, who actually gave me the amazing idea to register the domain vibitrage.com. So I'm sitting on it. I'm gonna start a blog for like all this AI bullshit, so you guys don't have to deal with it. And then Jim Walter, Phil Stokes, Tom Hagel on my team, who put out not just this top tier targeting post, but also rushed out something on Dragon Force yesterday in like
Ransomware
12
stuff, yeah.
hours. Yeah, because like, I mean, the UK got hit super hard. So Mark Spencer and a couple of other folks, we didn't even fucking mention it, right? Like it didn't even talk about it. And finally, JT, a loyal listener, one of our, what are we at, 50 listeners, who wrote us a really
73.
kind email. 73 listeners, who wrote us a very kind email last week, and was just, it's really great to hear from folks. So thank you for the feedback. Thank you for listening and for handling all the F-bombs. It's much appreciated.
You got people listening to the show in their car with their kids driving to work, complaining to me at RSA. I got this complaint at RSA. It's like, I love this show, man. I listen to every minute of it, but man, the F-bombs with my kid in the car. I was like, you're driving your kid to school and they're dropping F-bombs with their friends in school.
What do you mean
down.
they? What do you mean they?
Yeah. Let the kids. We're just
Let
preparing
the kids learn.
children here.
This is
Let
what
the kids
happens, and this is how we speak. I mean,
The kids
that's what I
fucking
said. I
hate
mean, this
Avanti.
is, yeah.
I'm
Austin.
glad there's kids out there that fucking hate Avanti and Fortinet and shit. Like those kids are representing out there.
And they're cursing in school too. I mean, they're swearing in high school. It's all good. Costin, close the show for us.
Yeah, it's almost day here, guys. I need to go vote. I need to go to church. So I'll see you next week. Like hopefully no tooth extraction. I'm good
Oh
for a
God,
while.
man.
But
Wait, are
actually,
you
yeah,
bringing the microphone to Spain?
I am. We'll do the
We have
next
to.
episode from Malaga, from the beautiful Malaga, and try to catch up with all our friends there.
Shout out to all the guys at PivotCon, all the speakers going out there. Hope your slides are done. Everyone is locked and loaded. I expect a lot of photographs and videos and updates from you guys. And
You know,
Shout
the
out to the
best thing-
Spanish,
The
our
best
Spanish
thing,
gov friends who are dealing with this fucking
Ooh,
not
yeah.
cyber attack here.
Just wanted to say the best thing about PivotCon, Magic Money talks and Magic Money keynote.
Magic
That's
Money
true.
keynote. Jackie is a badass, dude. This is gonna be fucking dope. That's gonna be great.
peace out, everyone. Catch you next week.